introduction.
You're all set.
Go ahead.
We'll open the Blackstone Millville Regional School District School Committee meeting for Thursday, December 1st. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Introduction of members.
Brittany Dwyer, Student Representative.
One Cop, Business Manager.
Steve Tringali, Millville.
Tara Larkin, Millville.
Wendy Greenstein, Blackstone.
Erin Vanaco, Millville.
Alan Himmelberger, Superintendent.
Dave Thompson, Assistant Superintendent.
Bill Chaplin, Blackstone.
Jane Reggio, Millville.
Georgette Jarrett, Blackstone.
Jack Keefe, Student Representative.
Thank you. And we'll move right to the report of the student reps.
So we had 4 weeks that we weren't around for, so this is that coming to a close. It's going to be a little long-winded tonight. We've got Powder Puff that we had the half day before Thanksgiving. That's basically where we have the girls play a football game. The guy football players dress up as cheerleaders and cheer them on, and everybody has some hot chocolate and watches. It ended up being a freshman and senior win over the juniors and sophomores, and the score was 14-8. It was 20-minute halves, so we weren't out there too long, but it was a very cold day, though. The final football games happened in the period of time where we were not here. That would be that varsity lost to Sutton in their final game, 27-26, a very close game. And JV won, however, in a score that Mr. Deletto told me was about 40-20.
All right, so we have senior superlatives that were sent in the past few weeks, and the Graphics 3 class from Mr. Juba has been counting them. I've heard some brief rumors on what seniors have gotten superlatives, but nothing official yet. So that's pretty exciting. Also, pep rally preparation is beginning, which is December 23rd, which is the Friday, which is the half day. The theme is cities, so freshmen picked Las Vegas, sophomores picked Los Angeles, juniors picked Boston, and the seniors picked New York City. So everyone's excited and preparing for a lip sync and a banner.
This morning we had our first honor roll breakfast for the first quarter. There was a total of 145 students who received either honors or high honors from all the grades. There were 38 freshmen, 33 sophomores, 25 juniors, and 49 seniors. It was great. The National Honor Society always does a great job putting that together. Plenty of food for everybody, and it's always a fun time. Mr. Dudek, unfortunately, we missed him there this morning. I don't know where he is out in the crowd. I missed him. I overlooked him. Hey, Mr. Dudek. We missed you. Where were you? Anyway. Also, we had our canned food drive leading up to the Thanksgiving break, so we ended up raising about 330 cans for the food pantry. The seniors brought over 100, and we won the food drive, which is a couple extra points for pep rally, which is becoming relevant in December.
And this week, winter sports have been beginning. We have varsity and JV boys and girls basketball. We have boys and girls indoor track and cheerleading. And they also are starting a fans in the stands, so lots of students get involved and cheer on the basketball teams as they play. This year, however, for music, we are not doing a winter guard or winter percussion competing units. Rather, we are doing technique classes to improve the musicians all together and the performers, which is a great time to have these students improve. And lastly, but not least, 2 weeks ago, I believe, or 3 weeks ago now, the marching band won nationals at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. This is the second consecutive year, which is a big deal. And also, we wanted to recognize the King Philip High School and Dartmouth High School, both from Massachusetts, also won their respective divisions. So for the state of Massachusetts, it was a big deal for marching band that weekend. So that is all we have for the past 4 weeks.
All right, great. And that actually helps us move right into the recognition of the marching band. So Mr. Schaefer and everyone else that is here, to Mr. Marcotte, Mr. Martins, and all the students, if you want to come up a lot closer.
Don't be afraid.
Do I have to stand up there?
Yeah, get over there.
And members.
Look at those nice jackets. Very nice.
Thank you for coming. I hope it wasn't too much of a short notice for everyone to
Thanks for having us.
come on in. Anything you want to say?
I would just want to say congratulations. I hear how hard you work from April on, and one of the joys of having my office nearby. And it's amazing the commitment that each of you and the entire band put in, matched maybe by the gentlemen that are seated in front of you. But it was a terrific run, and the more I learn about marching bands, I'm going to get my judging certification, because I think I'm almost there. And a special thanks to Mike Lynch, Channel 5's sports anchor, for recognizing you all on his football show Thanksgiving evening. It's a job well done, and we are proud.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we definitely are. I'll just go right off of that. And, I mean, the hours, I believe you had mentioned it. Do you want to tell us how many hours you had calculated for practice
In
and show?
rehearsal hours alone, not including, the hours on driving to shows or competing. This past year, we did 227 hours of just time practicing as a team.
That's definitely more than any of our other student groups. So I just want to point out that it does not go unnoticed, that means the hours that the three of you and the other instructors have put in are actually uncountable. And the time and dedication is beyond, I'm going to go out there and say that beyond anything, until you're a parent of a band student or a band student, that you don't even understand. So I know I thank you for your time. I'm sure some other committees want to recognize that, but.
I'd also like to recognize the hours that the parents put in as well. I'm aware of the Gillette Stadium commitment and all the rest of it is just crazy. But thanks to all the parents for all that they do as well. And obviously you guys, of course.
I want to congratulate you guys again on a second year, consecutive year. And I'd like to make a motion to purchase band jackets for the new members and patches for the members who already have jackets.
Second that.
Great, motion made by Tara and seconded by Wendy for the band jackets. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And I'm actually abstaining just because my child will be receiving one. Does anyone have a jacket that has a patch on it from last year? Just,
We have actually several kids.
so those are the patch.
Those are the white ones.
Okay, great.
Well, that's the new coat, right?
That's-
Yes.
Connor, did you have a coat already? Did you get a new patch?
Yeah, there's something on there.
it's not-
Okay. Okay, that's
Great.
it.
Do we have any idea of numbers? How many kids are going to be getting new coats and
I'm
jackets?
because so many got it last year, I'm going to guess maybe 21, 22, right around there. I think last year was, I want to say 49 or 50, so a lot less than last year, just because 2 years in a row. No, so it shouldn't be too many.
Great.
And we had a total of 79 in the band, so there'll be 79 patches altogether. And if I could just quickly thank all of you. I talked to a lot of band directors from the bands that we compete against, obviously before we beat them. And one of the things that we talk about is obviously just, what's your music program like, what's your support system like? And there's not a single school that we compete against that comes close to our size, and obviously I don't mean on the bigger end. They can't believe that our high school has 475 kids in it, and yet we put out a marching band like this, and that's just a testament to the support that we get from the parents, from the school board, from administration, Mr. Dudek, Mr. Cameron, Mr. Hillenberger, Dr. Thompson. It's really incredible. It just goes that the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, we have our own village here that raises this marching band. So I want to thank you for all the support that you've given us over the years that's helped us build this program, because people talk about us outside of Blackstone and Millville, so it's fun.
And I think that's great, and when we have teams come, I always ask the question, what can we do to support you more? So I think it's great that we are supporting you, but I think we could do better, because a few months ago, we had a discussion about, we don't maybe offer the languages we should in the district, but we offer an incredible music program. And we need the signs when you come into town that say 2-year champions, or, we need to to market that, if you will. We need those sixth graders to want to play in the band. We need those seventh graders to want to play in the marching band. So how do we do that?
Signs, I can tell you that conversation I've had a few times just recently is just to try to get those signs up, because right now the only sign is from 2001.
Right.
It'd be great, but I think that all the pieces are in place. You know, just the fact that we were able to do this again shows that everything's there. And I can tell you that we do our best to be salesmen to the fifth graders and sixth graders to try to inspire it. And it's like I said, the support is there. Any time that we can do a public performance, please let us know, because it helps us get our name out there, and it helps us support a local community event. Like we did a lot for the Millville Centennial this past year, so we just want to get ourselves out there performing as much as possible.
One thing that I will do is what I had mentioned at the recognition dinner and events at the auditorium is I will be at Gillette this summer. So, I'm anxiously looking forward to that. I have to start getting in shape now. I hear it's a bit of a grueling day and night, but we'll do it.
Great.
I would actually like to challenge the committee to, you know, if we could go together and put that support forward for the band, then, you know, I have not been yet, Jane has been.
I have been.
Tara's done several.
Tara, yes. So if there's a date we could arrange for all of us to, or most of us, to be able to support, I think that would be a great time too.
It is fun. I mean, like you said, it's a long day, but it can turn into fun.
I just think it's important to know firsthand how much that particular fundraiser is actually supporting our band. Do you know off the top of your head that the number we have yearly, have received yearly towards band from Gillette?
The Music Association contributes on average $55,000 a year to all the extracurricular activities. Obviously, marching band tends to be the biggest draw, and it also has the most amount of students, but they also support winter percussion, winter guard, jazz band, any extracurricular activity they will support any way they can. And obviously, like I said, marching band, you have the tractor trailer that has to be hauled and everything, so it ends up being a big draw off that. But.
Yeah. Well, I just think that's a really big number, and it's something that we need to remember to point out at our town meetings and at other budget discussions, because to be where you are, you know, it may not have been possible without all of that effort. So, and as far as the signs go, it's funny because are there signs going in and out of Blackstone? Does anyone know? I know there are the two in Millville.
There's a sign on Elm Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, on Elm Street, one of the old signs.
The yellow
from 2001.
sign.
The yellow sign, yep,
Okay.
yep.
So I had to drive my daughter around twice the other day because she kept missing. I'm like, it's right there. But my thought is, and if you've already looked into this, is actually having a new sign made that almost looks like the banners in the school with all of the years, because there were many years before 2000 that, you know, we've had our high school as champions. I know it wasn't national champion, right? It was,
Right, yeah.
but I think we need to show that legacy too. So maybe that's something you can talk about, and if we can help you in any way of getting that done, that would be something we would like to see
That'd be great.
happen too.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
That's excellent.
Any other questions or comments for our national champions? An audience member?
Maybe you can help us with something. When this happened, I contacted all of the local papers, the Blackstone Valley Breeze, all the local ones. And not one of them gave a little tiny thing with no photographer. So I gave them pictures, I gave them the whole thing. And I watched for the past 2 weeks. They cover every football game, every soccer game. They have 2 spreads of sport. Nobody had a photo or a blurb about this band winning national championships. Maybe you can help with that. I emailed, I called, I sent them photos. I got nothing. So I just think that that's a really great way to support, get the community to understand what's going on, and also to, honor these kids' commitments. So apparently, as just a schmo, I can't do anything, but maybe you could help with that.
Does US Bands put out a press release, or
They don't.
they don't?
Only because they have so many, they actually have 2 national championships. They have the A-class national championships, where they have 6 winners from that, then they have the open class, which is what we're part of. So they try to just stay as far back from supporting any individual team.
I don't know. I do know even when we've tried to talk about budget stuff, we don't get the airtime either, or the newspaper, but I don't know if you have any other connections.
Well, I found out I have one on Channel 5.
I was gonna say, actually, luckily we have, we,
Keep moving in that
That was
direction.
the shout out.
So,
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
thanks so much for having us.
All right, and moving to our next agenda item, we have our financial report from Jim Eggert. Thank you for your patience with the marching band.
Yes, be tough to beat the band on this one. I have some handouts for you, and I'm just going to cover the year end from my perspective. I'm going to talk a little bit about some comments on the year-end close, recap the balance sheet, talk a little bit about the general fund revenues, budget versus actual, status of the appropriations, again, budget versus actual, recap the special revenue funds that you have on the general books, which are really under the control of the school committee, and just show a roll forward of the fund balance in the general fund, and just recap the debt, so all know what happened with the bond anticipation notes this year and the permanent debt. Well, just my comments first before I just get into this handout. This is probably the most efficient close I've seen since I've been the consultant to the district, which is almost going on 29 years. In 1988, I came in here. Mrs. Cobb did a really commendable and excellent job closing these books her first year in, and really didn't require as much assistance as I would have expected. She got all the filings with the Department of Revenue and DESE done timely and, done correctly. And in fact, because of her efficiencies, my fees this year have decreased significantly. It's all because really what she did. So she needs to be commended on that. It should be noted that the E&D certification is in process. What we reflect in these statements, we have undesignated E&D, which is about $564,000. They make some small adjustments to that at DOR for any deficits you might have in the special revenue funds or the grants, which as a point in time, and those change and roll over. So it's just as of June 30. So it doesn't really affect the numbers that I'm going to show you in this handout. And according to Mrs. Cobb, I guess she's expecting D&D to be certified very soon and be in the same range as the undesignated fund balance we're showing on the balance sheet. I know that she scheduled the audit for 2016 for January 2017, and they'll be coming in to do the audit next month, because we're already into December. So I think that, in the handouts here, if you can just take a quick look at the general fund balance sheet recap, which would be the first page in the stapled together handout, it just recaps the balance sheet that existed at June 30th, 2016. The balance sheet is definitely stable. There's nothing here that's unusual. Normal, you get cash balances, little accounts, small accounts receivable, because you collect those from the state on an ongoing basis, so there was nothing outstanding at the end of the year. We've got our payroll liabilities, and that really just represents the accrued payroll at the end of June to be paid to the teachers over the summer. So there's nothing unusual here, but more importantly, the fund balances. Your undesignated fund balance at the end of June is $564,000, after we carved out $350,000 for reduction in the operating assessments for 2017. And then we have some encumbrances there which carry over to 2017. So the balance sheet is, as I said, stable. There's nothing there that should alarm anybody. And just to tie in with that, the next page shows you a schedule I put together to just try to give you, depict what our undesignated fund balance is as a percentage of next year's budget. And the state allows you to reserve up to 5% of the coming year's budget, and this shows you what you've maintained over the years. Between 2.5% and 3% is probably the average of what you've maintained, and actually that's good for two reasons. Number one, you give yourself a little cushion in the district in case of anything that happens that's out of the norm, and also Standard & Poor's and Moody's, who look at the debt that the district might have, like to see there's a commitment by the member towns to maintain a fund balance, undesignated fund balance. So I think you're okay there. You've been doing that all along. I just showed the schedule from 2009 going forward. And it's gone from, 2.74%, and this year it's 2.48%. So it's within the range is what it's been for the last 5 or 6 years. And as far as the actual year of the operations for the year, the general fund revenues, very little variances, they're all positive. The management, superintendent and his staff have kept the budget in line with budget versus actual. And you can see that page, the different sources of the revenue and what was budgeted and how it came in. But there's nothing there that is problematic. In fact, it's very good. And on the following page, the status of appropriations as of June 30th, I just scheduled out the budget by different titles or different functions and what was expended. And of course, you always have variances in your expenses versus budget or plan. But you can see there that overall, you expended less than what you budgeted, which means, you were favorable. And again, you can look at that, but there's nothing there that's going to jump out at you and indicates any kind of problem. On the next page, which is special revenue funds, what I just scheduled here is just show the different special revenue funds we have, the revolving funds that school committee has jurisdiction over and can dictate, just to show you the revenues that came in and the monies that went out of these funds and what the balance is at the end of June of 2016, just really for informational purposes, so you can see what you have available that sits there in the special revenue funds, which again are the responsibility and the oversight by school committee to do with those funds what they wish. And normally they're spent in these particular categories, but the school committee has authority over these funds. And stop me if you have a question, but I'll just keep going. The FY16 fund balance roll forward, which is on the next page. We started off at the end of June 30th, 2015 with an undesignated fund balance of $633,000. We committed $350,000 of that to the 17 budget, which left us an available E&D of $283,000. Now, that was increased because we had favorable revenue and operating variances for the fiscal year end of June. So you can see we ended up with $564,209 as E&D at the end of June 30th, 2016, which is comparable to last year, not much different by, a few $1,000. So that, that just kind of tells you how we went from the beginning of the year to the end of the year in our fund balance. And lastly here, on that last page, the debt recap. I put this together just so you can see what happened to your debt during the year. You rolled over your bond anticipation notes, which for the roof projects. So that was an in and out, and we still had a balance of $946,000 on those roof projects outstanding at the end of June. We have this long-term debt, which is the sewer note, the middle school bonds, and what we bonded in the roof projects. And so you have a total of debt at the end you went from $6 million in debt to $5.5 million in debt at the end of June 30th, 2016. And this just shows you the interest we had to pay to support that debt. I looked at this 2015 audit report from the auditors, and it was good. It was much improved over 2014. The only comment they had in 2014 was that the internal controls over cash needed to be revisited, and actually, Mrs. Cobb did that and changed the structure of how the bank reconciliations are handled monthly, so that she has somebody in the office reconcile the bank accounts, and she reviews them. So she's not doing everything herself anymore, which is very good, and I think those controls have improved significantly, and there won't be a management letter comment on that this year. And with that, again, I think the district looks in good shape, and as it stands at the end of June, your audit's scheduled, all your filings with the DOR and DES have been submitted by Mrs. Cobb, and I think you're rolling nicely into 2017, which almost is half gone.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Eggert?
Thank you.
So it basically seems that there's nothing really glaring that's high or low that we need to be alarmed about.
No, I think, I don't want to reiterate, but because you've already heard me say it, but Mrs. Cobb has a really good handle on the financial aspects of the district. I mean, she maintains that office. Everybody knows what their job is. They do it efficiently. Very few adjustments, if any. And you can rely on what you see and what you're presented with by her.
Great.
Great. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Eggert.
Thank you very much, Jim.
I flew in on a red-eye last night to come here, so
Well, thank you.
We're glad you did.
I was very glad to see you all, and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, and then we'll move to our first public forum. Anyone from the audience? Go ahead. If you could just state your name and the town you're from.
My name is Marcia Davis.
You can have a seat right at our, the microphone is for the cable purposes, so.
Okay. Yeah, Marcia Davis, Millville. I know that if you haven't already started your budget talks, you might even be in the middle of that. You will be doing that soon. And I've come across some information that I find very disturbing in regards to the MCAS results. In the spring of 2015, Blackstone Millville actually placed third in a group of 12 communities. That same group of 12 this year, we are now 12th. We dropped from 3rd to 12th place. Our MCAS scores, actually, we had fewer students taking the MCAS. In spring of 2015, there was 115. Spring of this year, there were 97. English ELA in 15 was 97. This year, it was 88. The math scores, 88. This year, 70. The science scores, 88. This year, 73. And our per pupil expenditure, according to the information I have, is $18,349. We are the highest per student expenditure in this group of towns that we're looking at. So my question is, as the number of students in the classroom decreases and our expense per student increases, our MCAS are bottoming out. This concerns me as a taxpayer, because I know you're going to be coming and wanting more money for the school budget. And, what's going on? Does anyone have any information to address this? Yeah.
I'm not sure of the reports that you're looking at. That per pupil number seems very high to me based
Worcester
upon.
Business Journal, public
Right, but
record.
I believe they're using different numbers than we get published from the Department of Ed. The other issue is that the tests are changing. So it's very difficult in the period that we are in to do comparisons because the state's assessments are in flux and are changing. MCAS was the test for 3 through 8 plus the graduation requirement in grade 10. Now that has shifted partway into PARC, the Partnership for the Readiness for College and Career. And so that test is a much more reflective test of what students need to know as we move forward. And these are decisions that are made at the state level. And so not every district last year had the same combination of assessments. 2 years ago, it was about 75% that were using MCAS. This past year, it was about 50%. We have moved to PARC, the PARC-like test that was evolved last spring. That is again going to change once again, and we are also being instructed by the state to move to computer-based testing. So that it's very challenging to look at apples to apples, year to year, in where we are, and you can look at a lot of different numbers, and the conclusions are many and varied. I do know that along with the changes in the curriculum, along with the changes in the assessment, that many districts are going through a multitude of changes. We are trying to maintain our focus on the curriculum, the instruction, and how our results compare year to year. It is, again, and this is well documented in the media outlets and from the state, it won't be for another 2 or 3 years that the assessments will level out and everyone will have the same assessments. We also know that the content of what we are assessing is shifting once again with the change in the science standards. Right behind that now, we are looking at the humanities and history and social studies. So there is a lot of movement in curriculum. There is a lot of movement within the assessments. I think we see dedicated teaching and learning in all of our schools. We also know that we have more challenges in the makeup of our student population because we have continuing increases in our English language learners, in our special education, and in our economically disadvantaged population. And those are subgroups that require more resources and are much more challenging to get to achieve and to close that achievement gap.
Well, you know, where I'm getting the information here from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So you're telling me that their information is incorrect? This
No,
is
I'm
coming
not saying
from the
that.
Department
I
of
did not, I did
of
not say
Education.
that. I said I don't know exactly what numbers you are looking at.
Oh, that's what
from
I'm
that-
looking at.
That
This is
Worcester
the
Business
MCAS
Journal.
results from the Department of Education, Massachusetts. And, you know, when I look at this, you know, I'm not criticizing the school. I want the school to attract as many students as possible. But if I'm a parent and I'm looking at a community for an education for my students to move into, and I look at these 2 years of MCAS results where, you know, Blackstone Millville has gone from 3rd place to 12th place in 1 year. As a parent, I'm going to sit there and go, what's going on with that school? I'm not going to move to Millville or Blackstone. That's how I feel about it as a parent. And this alarms me, you know, and I think rightfully so. You know, and you say that we're challenged with a lot of communities in Massachusetts and throughout the United States are challenged with non-speaking, you know, English is not their first language learners. And, you know, I mean, we're not looking at, you know, we're looking at the communities in our surrounding here. We're looking at Douglas. We're looking at Milford. Milford has a huge population of non-speaking English as a second language. Northbridge, Sutton, you know. So, I mean, I'm not looking at, you know, you know, the Boston area schools. I'm looking at right here in our area, and I find this disturbing. You know, is there a plan? You know, what are you hoping to do to improve this situation?
I think if you can stay for the rest of the meeting, there you will listen to our principals presenting their improvement plans and their individual results. And I think that we know the task in front of us. And it's not always, and this is going to sound funny, it's not always about equating dollar for dollar, but that's a big piece of it as we move forward. We are a district that has been underfunded for 11 years. And we have a school budget that has not kept pace with the needs of this district. And over the last 10 years, you can see the dramatic reduction in students. We are doing a lot of different initiatives to try and stem the tide, so we're not a district of 1,200, that we are a lot closer to 2,000, to give us the economies of scale, to move us forward. And while we accept the numbers, we know that we have room for improvement.
Well, this is a change in just a year. I mean, so you're talking about 10 years that the budget hasn't been funded. I'm talking about,
And you can see
you know,
a
year.
comparable increase next year.
I hope so.
Right.
I hope so.
Could I jump in? I'd have to take a look at that report, but to talk about MCAS scores and throwing us in there is not possible. We did not take the MCAS last year, except in
We
10th
used
grade.
PARCC.
We took the PARCC, which is a more difficult test. And we specifically took the more difficult tests so we would have a head start on what adjustments we needed to make to move forward. So I'm not quite, I'd have to take a
From
look
the
at that.
Department of Education, so
Well,
I guess you maybe need to talk with
Do you
them.
have any
'cause it
copies?
doesn't
for
say.
our
Do you have
committee?
copies?
Do you have any copies for us?
You can look at the copy I have, but I didn't make copies.
But we, I mean, the last school committee, when the elementary schools were here, if you look at our PARCC results, you know, compared to the state, and you have to talk PARCC or you have to talk MCAS, some of those districts probably took the MCAS. We took the PARCC, which was a more difficult task. So I would not find it You know, and again, I don't know exactly what we're talking about, but I would expect that our results would be less because we took a harder assessment. Okay, but we took a harder assessment so that we can be ahead of the curve when these kids have to take these tests to have a competency determination. And so that our teachers have results to move forward. So there is a plan. And it's not all about 1 year snapshot. We're looking long-term. We're looking 3 to 5 years down the road.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And as Mr. Himmelberger pointed out, if you are staying for the rest of the meeting,
Yeah.
we do have our, all of our administrators here, and they will be
You'll see me
presenting.
at a lot of meetings for the
Okay.
next year.
Could I request that you submit the things that you bring to us so that we can absorb them?
I
So that we
assumed
know what
as
you're
the
talking.
school
Can I
committee,
just
you would
finish?
have
Can I just
these.
finish?
The Worcester Business
Just so that
Journal.
we know exactly what you're looking at, so that we can have that conversation. Because when you're holding up, this is from the DESE, this is from the DES, anybody can hold up papers from the DESE. We need to be able to absorb that information, so that we could adequately respond to your comments. That's all I'm asking, is the next time you come with information, please submit it to us so that we could absorb that information and respond accurately.
Like I said, I would have assumed since it's from the
We
Department of
have it,
Education.
but
that
do you know how
have
much
it.
information is from the DESE? Because you could be on there all day. All day you could be on there. So just submit it, and I would really like to respond to those comments, but I'm not going to respond if I don't have information in front of me.
Okay, that's
Thank you.
fine.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Moving on to consent agenda A. We have warrants, field trips, minutes for meetings from November 3rd and November 8th. The warrants are payroll and payables, and I think there was just one question, Alan, on the payables. The baseball field donation, do we have any?
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't really understand what
I
that
know.
is.
Do
The-
you know
the-
what that's for?
That one,
This thing. No.
It actually doesn't. No, it's not us giving a donation, are we receiving a donation? A
They did a
payable means we're paying.
fundraiser and they put 2,000 in to attract more donation. If that, the 2,000,
Who put 2,000 in?
from the athletic fund, athletic account.
But who, so now I'm.
Probably the
yes,
baseball team.
The baseball team did a fundraiser, like
Yes.
they've done every year,
Yeah.
to build the fields up, and it's sitting in an account, and they
They
use
probably
it.
have to put it into an account so they can
They
spend it.
can, yeah.
Okay.
That's 2,000 if that's what you have question on.
Was this in some of the
But
other
we're
vouchers?
paying out
We're
$2,000?
not paying out, it's just, it's like a seed fund, I don't know.
Transfer.
Yeah, moving it into their account?
No, they raised money, put it in an account, and then they spent it.
No, but this is a payable, meaning we're paying.
right.
It has to come out of our
Has to
account.
come to us and then it goes to.
Right.
So it has to be received by us and then moved to baseball so they can then spend it.
Don't we usually have a separate motion for that? For the donations?
Well, it's coming out of the donation account, I believe is what Wen is saying. It's being partly paid from that one account.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the payroll or payables, or do we want to make the motion together or break them up?
I make a motion to approve consent agenda A.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Wendy and second by Jane. Any discussion? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Moving on to school committee, we have no items there. Report of the superintendent?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vanaco. I'll again turn it to Mrs. Cobb for her financial update, which the committee had asked for, as well as approval to increase the number of vendors that we offer our employees for contributions into their 403Bs.
Thank you. Just want to give a quick financial update. The new balance up to today is $345,000. So it's it's not high, but it's manageable. So we've encumbered the, all the salaries and the supplies, and the 345 really is gonna cover maintenance, repairs, and the snow removal, and any student move in. So we're gonna.
So what you're saying is we better hope it doesn't snow this winter?
No, it's gonna cover the snow removal.
Oh, we did cover, we did encumber?
Do we have
didn't.
any money encumbered for snow?
Not yet.
It's 345.
That's for 345. It's gonna
Do
cover.
you know what we spent on snow last year?
I can find out. Because last year was a warm winter, so we cannot just based on last year's.
Right, I'm just
But
asking
you
for
could
a
have a flow,
comparison.
I'm sure there's a flow chart
I
at
can
some
find out
point.
and I can send to you tomorrow. And same with utilities, it's hard to predict at this point. So we just hope we have a warm winter again.
December 1st.
Any questions?
There was a request, I think, at the last meeting to post these so that people could see where are the expenditures. Is that?
Yeah, I think this looks like a good report. It kind of breaks down and people can see. So yeah, if we can add this to the school committee homepage.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We can post it.
Thank
This
you.
will be posted how frequently? Monthly, quarterly? What would?
Quarterly is
Anytime
fine.
we
We get
see
it
it.
quarterly,
We do it
so.
quarterly.
Okay.
But we
Just
can
think,
post this one.
I think we had a discussion at the last meeting of just how easy it would be to
Yeah,
set up a
it's
link
already here.
versus having it in a
Snapshot.
folder, so that people could see our expenditures.
Okay. So I assume I would do another update at the end of the quarter,
That'd be great.
maybe a month? Okay.
So I just want to ask one other question. I know at our last meeting, we spoke with concern about that total number. But you're saying you've encumbered supplies and salaries, so right now we don't have any freezes in place, correct? So if a building needs something that was budgeted, it is
All the things we know at
that
this
we
point.
budgeted for?
Yes.
Any other questions for Wen?
Thank you.
We have to do the vote.
And
403B?
yeah, 403B. So move to the next motion. Currently, we only have one vendor for 403B plan, which is MetLife. And we think add more vendors will benefit our employees. So I'm gonna recommend the school committee to accept the multi-vendor 403B plan.
We need a motion to accept these as written.
So right now, they only have available to them MetLife?
And so this approval will, they'll have an option of any of these.
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the multi-vendor 403B plan.
Okay, motion made by Wendy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Georgette. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you for bringing that to us, Wen.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mrs. Cobb, for all your diligence, day in and day out. It is much appreciated, and as Mr. Eggert said, he was, I think, surprised and very pleasantly surprised that we were in such good shape, thanks to Wen's efforts. Next is our new technologist, Mr. Sean Bozan, who joined us at the end of September, so he is still keeping quite busy learning all things BMR. And we welcome Sean. He has come to us from, I believe, 14 years at KP, at King Philip.
11 years.
11 years at King Philip, and knows technology even more than Dr. Thompson. So I'm happy to say
This much.
that. So welcome, and we are very happy that we have someone of Sean's caliber to take us forward. And he has already been hard at work, as you see in your packet, and so welcome and take it away.
Thank you. A couple of things I'd like to do is just introduce myself and talk a little bit about my background. I originally started self-employed. And as Al Gore invented the internet, got involved in technology back in '92. Was self-employed, took a lot of courses, because there weren't a lot of technological courses when I was in college, and started my own computer business. Went into higher ed. I worked at Curry College for 6 years, and worked at King Philip Regional School District for 11 years. It's been a fun ride. I came from higher ed realizing the need in K through 12 for instructional technology, operational people of knowledge of how to make it happen. And I saw that through the kids in higher ed, not knowing how to even Google, the right way to Google and what to do, and we've come a long way. I would like to thank the administration and staff for what they've done. It's only been 2.5 months of making me welcome, but also helping me, especially in the hallways when there's an emergency and I'm going the opposite direction. It's been a great transition because of that. The second thing I'd like to talk about is kind of a state of the union. I'm going to do the best I can because it's only been 2.5 months. In the stern of the boat, I'm looking at the horizon, and it's pretty foggy because we need to keep chugging along. So I'll give you the best that I can at this point. There were projects that were planned, still planned, that we're working on. And as I said, as I'm saying, in good faith, I really can't comment on a lot of the stuff in the infrastructure because I'm still learning it and where everything is. Kind of like walking in the hallway. I don't know exactly where everything is yet, but when it breaks, I'm finding it pretty quickly. So I've hit the road running, and that's the best way to learn, is to, bruise yourself. We finished up the wireless since I've started. It was finished, but it needed to be a little tightened up. We have not shut down the old wireless yet because we just finished a follow-up survey to make sure we have proper coverages in educational spaces. I will be receiving that report, I'm hoping, by tomorrow.
Is that in all the schools?
In all the schools, we did a follow-up. The fiber connection at JFK and AFM was completed 2 weeks ago. That did not bring more speed, but it brought cleaner speed without digging into the technical jargon. We basically went from cable to fiber. A little bit faster, but negligible. We put a help desk in place. Our old help desk was basically an email, very hard to track. Very hard for our end user to know where things are. There was no acknowledgement when we were receiving stuff. It's just an email. So we're hopefully going to be able to better track, and the end user will be able to see what's going on seamlessly. So as you submit a ticket, it comes in, we respond to it. It's all with an email, but it's in a ticket system that allows us to track what it is, hardware, software, how long it took us to do it. I'm hoping that it's going to give us some data that we can move forward with to better support everyone.
And who's in charge of the help desk? You're the
Sam
it
Conklin
person.
and myself.
Okay.
Yes.
I just didn't know if there was like, kids, like high schoolers or something to get like, I
There's
know we don't
talk-
have the budgetary aspect of it, but I was just wondering if there was like.
I like
maybe
your thought process.
A long-term plan of those technology savvy high schoolers
Well, at King
to help
Philip,
out with
I
those.
initiated a student-run help desk.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see
Oh,
it through
great.
fruition, but I initiated it. There is talk of that.
Great.
With the Chromebooks coming on, which is,
But there's no desk.
I know this.
It's all
no
electronic.
time to sit at the desk.
That's good to hear, though. I'm glad that there's,
We're talking, Mr. Dudek is
That vision.
involved in that, and
great.
hopefully we can bring it down to the middle school, too. But again, it's in its infancy, so it's just talk.
Right. So you got a big job to do.
I gotta get my eyes around the infrastructure first. I heard Mr. Himmelberger and mention about MCAS 2.0 and Park. We're prepping for that as well. There's a lot to do to get prepared for that, as well as the Chromebook initiative, which, again, I'd like to give kudos to Mr. Dudek and his team, Mr. Ducharme. The operational side is more me, but they've done a great job of establishing a vision and making this happen and getting me up to speed in 2.5 months to make it happen, and I'm going to say as early as January. So, thank you, Mr. Dudek, I really appreciate it. So the Chromebook rollout is, we're actively enrolling and inventorying the Chromebooks right now. We're prepping them. We're meeting with the students on Monday, and Mr. Dudek just announced that we're going to be meeting with the parents on Wednesday. So we're really excited about that.
And that's for 9th and 10th?
9th and 10th graders. So we talk more on infrastructure, but in good faith, I can't. Are any questions?
Is the plan for MCAS 2.0 to be paper this year? Or a mix?
Well, there'll be computer-based testing at grades 4 and grade 8.
Okay,
Everyone else will be paper.
okay.
Yeah, that was something that we worked on November, end of October. That's where Sean got his first initiation into the infrastructure. So we had to figure out whether we had the capacity to do it, the number of computers, working with all the elementary principals and Mr. Cameron to see whether it was all going to work. And we could sign up for more, but we figured we wouldn't push it, so we're just going to do 4 and 8.
Questions?
How's the webpage?
Good question. In my experience, you need to do triage, and as I've told my administration, I shoot from the hip sometimes. Sometimes it causes bleeding, sometimes it causes bruising. You may not like what you have to say, but we, given our current status, I am working with Mrs. Walsh to work on that.
Okay.
But right now, it's taking everything that we've got to get the Chromebooks out, finish up the projects that we have at hand, and do daily support. So we are working on it. We do know the concerns. Bridget has an excellent idea. She's been great at filling me in on what the concerns are and the changes that need to be done. And we have them in motion. It just may not happen as quickly as everyone likes.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem.
Any other questions?
Oh, excellent.
Policy rollout?
Just a few.
Tonight, I believe you'll be voting on what used to be the acceptable use policy, and a lot of districts call a responsible use policy. The document that you're looking in front of you is online, will be online as you approve it. But what we've done is with, again, Mr. Dudek and his team, Ursula Hunt has been great, the instructional technology specialist, is we've morphed a BYOD one-to-one responsible use policy all into one. So going forward, not just with the Chromebook initiative, it'll be expected that every parent sits down with their student and reads this with the student and signs off on it online, so we can get rid of paper, or hopefully get rid of paper, safe paper. So again, we've taken this, I've said it so many times that Ursula Hunt and I are calling it the P3 agreement, because it's the technology program policy and procedure. But it is essentially a responsible use policy morphed with a one-to-one and BYOD. Because there may be students that aren't going to, they'll opt out of using a Chromebook and they want to bring their own device.
Great.
We are looking for a vote on that.
This, yeah, but we have, if it's a policy, it has to be read, and then reread, and
3
then
times,
voted on.
right?
Or you could waive.
Or
the
we could waive it.
Or you can waive the follow-up readings.
Pleasure of the committee?
Is this basically boilerplate, or how unique is this to BMR?
I would say it's a montage of different templates and my experience of writing an acceptable use policy and a responsible use policy and a BYOD policy. So it's a little bit of experience and a little bit from here and there of different districts.
I jump in, and I think we're kind of downplaying the amount of research that went into this. But Mr. Dushek Dudek, Mr. Ducharme, the two together. Roseanne, and Mrs. Hunt. They spent the better part of the last month and a half working
Yeah.
on this. They have visited 4 or 5 different places that have either, iPads or Chromebooks or BOD, and have really taken the best out of some of the best programs that, around us and across the state. Sat down, meshed that out, the faculty at the high school, identifying and putting together a vision for this initiative, a tremendous amount of work, and it really, this document really covers everything soup to nuts. And I have to say, I've looked at a lot of them, and this is right up there at the top. So, I don't want to downplay the amount of work and effort that went into this, and the thought that went into it, and the discussions. And so they would go visit, they would come back, they would go back and ask questions. And they really have taken the best of the practices that they've seen across the state and to put this together. So I'm very pleased with this piece.
And Dave, if you could point out for us the last time this a policy was updated?
1998.
98. Our acceptable
in
use
desperate
policy
need.
is terribly out of date, so it needs to be.
So this policy is for all students, not just the
Right,
Chromebook.
right. The policy
one-on-ones.
is for, the responsible use policy is in here for the district.
Okay.
But layered on top, and in this particular document, is all the policies and procedures for handing out, using, expectations, rules around Chromebooks, and other students at the high school will be able to bring their own device. If you have a student who doesn't want the Chromebook, wants to use their laptop from home, that's okay too. And then hopefully, once we roll this out, don't faint on me, Mr. Cameron, but maybe the last quarter of the year, we start, BYODing here at the middle school. But I think, based on our technology staff and making sure we do this well and right, that we need to go, a little slow. There's a lot of pieces with this, the insurance piece, the Go Guardian piece, and I told you from the beginning that we were going to design a way to do this where no matter where they use these Chromebooks, they are going to go back through our filters here at the school. We'll be able to see what they're doing, be able to monitor them and filter them. That's the advantage of using the Chromebook as opposed to having their own laptop, but that's an individual choice. When they're in school, they're using our network, they're using our filters. When they're home, if it's their own device, they wouldn't. But if it's a Chromebook from the school, it will still go through our filters.
And I had actually asked you to send this to the committee last week, and we all got a copy before
Right, you got a
Thanksgiving.
draft copy, and then it was tweaked again the end of the week, maybe a little over the weekend, but definitely Monday morning as well.
Anything major? that-
Any major changes?
No. So we have definitely all had a chance to look at it. There is a time issue here with the parent meetings and student meetings.
Yeah, we want to be able to present this to the students next week as law of the land, if you will, and
Do we need a
parents as well.
motion?
Well, we need a motion
A
to waive our
motion.
policy procedure first.
We need a motion to waive the 3 readings. I think it can be one motion. Motion to waive the 3 readings and approve the technology program policy and procedure.
Well, I'm not willing to, or I would prefer not, I would prefer to do them separately, because I have questions.
So do you have a motion?
I
I'll
move
make a motion to waive.
to waive the 3 readings, I'll second it.
As a one-time, like, what?
Consider this policy.
Okay. So a motion made by Bill and seconded by Jane to waive the 3 readings just in regards to this policy. And any discussion on the waiving? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And
Now we need a second motion to approve the 3P, you call it? Okay. I'll make that motion.
Second.
okay, motion made by Steve and second by Tara. And any discussion?
Yeah, I have some. I guess I have a general concern about some of the vagueness in the initial rules and conditions, but I don't know how you get around that in terms of saying that, the administrators will determine what's appropriate or not appropriate. And I think it has to be that vague, but on page 4, it says about Not quite two-thirds of the way down. I understand that my school network and my school account are property of BMRSD, and anything that I do can be monitored. I think it needs to say anything that I do on this network or with this account can be monitored. Anything I do can be monitored is a really broad statement.
Is that in conjunction with the Go Guardian? Because anything they do will be.
It's
will be-
either, it's either, I mean, think of it as a highway, it's monitored.
Right. But within the, I guess what I'm saying is, somebody could read this and say, anything I do, anything I do.
So what would your wording be?
I just think you need to say something like, anything I do on this network or with this account can be monitored.
Sure.
I have no objection.
Yeah.
So let me get this, and anything that I do on this network.
School network.
And account, or whatever, or school account,
So
however
should
you
you
want
say
to
on this device and network?
Or account, it's your account. In other words, you're gonna have a school account. Anything you do using that account can be monitored.
But if they're using
But
their
if
own
you use your
device-
own account,
Well, they're still gonna be using the school account.
And it can be monitored
They're
we
using
need to
school
say
accounts
to-
now.
on this network.
I wonder if you want to go a little further and say, and I am responsible for. Or somehow show them they're responsible for anything they do on this.
It says it in the, when you sign it, like in the back, it
Yeah.
says that
Yeah.
they're responsible for
Okay.
all of that. So
Yeah.
I think it's in the technology
You have it,
policy.
you have it above, in a responsible
Right.
way.
Okay, I
And
got
a
you.
lot of the verbiage, to your comment on the generality of it, it seems like it, but if you read the old school acceptable use policies, it's,
actually much
it's.
more.
it is, yeah, oh, absolutely. And I've been reading a lot of policies lately, but yeah.
They're,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I don't know, it's the,
Sean, is social media in here?
yes,
I believe we touched on it, yeah.
yeah, it's on page, hold on. Just- Right about what I just read. Go way back to page 4. There we go. About social network.
Yeah, 12, personal communication
That's
via any
12.
mobile computing device are prohibited unless explicitly approved by a teacher for educational purposes.
Right.
Electronic communication, including phone calls, email, instant messaging, texting, chats, blogs, Skype services, Facebook, et cetera.
It's also on page 4.
I was
Both
really looking for
places.
the one on page 4, the second
Okay.
one, the rules and conditions. I understand that I represent the school district.
Any other discussion? So are we able to make that change and approve it this evening?
Yep, the changes.
Approve it with the changes noted. Okay, so I'm looking, we have the motion on the floor. And it's just that one line, Jane? And we're adding,
We're adding anything that I do on this network or account can be monitored.
all right, so I'm looking for, all those in favor, to approve with the changes. Anyone, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor to approve with changes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you for your work.
Very much.
Thank you very
Good
much.
job.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you. Good job.
Moving on next, we have Mrs. Desai and Mrs. Brown with the Kennedy and Maloney Improvement Plan.
Yeah, no kidding.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
So Mrs. Brown and I are going to present the school improvement plan. Even though the first part is for John F. Kennedy for grades K through 2, and the second part is for AFM grades 3 through 5, if you flip through it, you'll see they're similar. We have made adjustments for the grades. So we'll present it as if it's K through 5, if that's okay for you, because it's the same formatting, same language, we just adjust it for grades. So if you look at the first goal, we want the students in grades K through 2 will learn the required mathematical concepts and skills as identified by Common Core standards. We have 2 objectives. The first objective is focusing on the fact that the students are going to learn the foundational concepts for kindergarten through grade 5. Again, which you've got in front of you is from K to 2. We will continue to, as you know, we implemented the new Envisions math program last year. We're in year 2. Things are going much, much better this year. We will continue to implement the standards using the math program and the assessments. We're still, curriculum mapping for math is flowing much easier because it is a structured program. What we want to start focusing on are the essential questions. Envisions does have that, but to give teachers the flexibility to own it and make it their own. But the program has everything beautifully laid out. We have to just map it out with our pacing piece of it. And I'm going to go to the evaluation part because we did purchase Star Renaissance for grades 2 through 5 for both math and English language arts. So those grades will implement the STAR testing, which we've already done the first part of it. And we will probably do round 2 January, mid-January, and then at the end of the year. Then the STAR program is online, and it gives beautiful data for growth and also for student performance.
Do parents get that?
We are still flushing it out. We wanted to get a feel for it first. I know that staff have been sharing it with parents. It's not at a point where they've shared it, not everybody has shared it, because I think the teachers are still learning and interpreting and making sense of it. What is it telling us? I think giving the teachers and the staff time to feel comfortable with the STAR assessment. And yes, we will share with parents. It's just they have to be able to go through the program. We're just starting it this year in the elementary level.
Yeah, they're
And
really
what grade level?
2nd through
2
5th.
through 5, yeah, and there are really 2 parts to this. The first is the administrative part. How do you administer it? How do you help students? It's an online assessment, so of course that's fairly new to them. So that's the first piece. And the second piece is that we've been providing professional development for teachers, because when you go into STARS, there is so much data that you can pull. So you have to learn how to navigate throughout the system and understand what it is you're looking for and how to pull all of that data. So we just had a PD session during our curriculum meeting time with teachers, so that was very helpful. So we're still in the process of pulling, and then once we have that data, actually there's a third piece. Once we have that data, then what do we do with it? And how does that drive instruction, and how does that drive our RTI time? So
again,
it's a pretty
right.
good learning curve.
Right. And we're really grateful to the 2 staff from the middle school who've been taking the lead with the STAR program, Mrs.
Lauren
Boyle
and Gwen
Swanson, who have worked beautifully with us. They're coming over and giving us guidance because, like Mrs. Brown said, there's so much data. You have to know what you're looking at and how to use it and get that understanding. So certainly we will share with parents. I think we just are in the process, and I can tell you teachers have been happy with it from what I'm hearing so far. Also, Envisions has the end of the unit chapter tests, so those are given throughout the year. There is a pre and a post test. Envisions, we are using it from the tests, the pre and post from grades 1 through 5. Actually, self-correction, there's no pre-test. There's a post-test that we gave at the beginning of the year, and we'll give it at the end to gauge growth. Kindergarten made their own assessment because the Envisions had too many parts that they're not able to get to for the full year because it captures so much. So they developed their own pre and post test to get better data for themselves. Questions from that first part? And then we also want to continue to have students develop mastery first, the skills and strategies for math. The beautiful part of Envisions. I know it's a strong language-based math program, yet it really, really, really takes apart numerical concepts. Children can break up the numbers. It shows them a variety of different strategies that are purposefully modeled and taught, and then you have discussions, and everyone has their math focus walls. So staff are beginning to get a lot of data from looking at student work, and through the discussions in the classroom, what we want to try to do is create a systemic system for sharing this data so that they can analyze it better. And it's a little more tricky because we've got chapter tests versus dipstick measures. STAR certainly helps for grades 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's kindergarten and first grade that we're working a little more of the data, the standards, and then you add on top of all of that developmental progression. You have these assessments that just give you a very specific finite point. This is where you should be at a certain time. It's a calculation made from longitudinal studies. What a lot of these assessments miss is developmental progression, which there's a big wide range when you're talking for 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. There's a bigger range of development where some children might hit the mark here, some might hit here, and some might hit more towards end of first grade, beginning of second grade. So I keep reminding people you want to look at ongoing significant progress rather than just the numbers. So that's why we've put creating the system, it's more of a challenge when you're talking about the younger development. The gap certainly, it's not a gap, but the range narrows the older you get. Does this make sense, what I'm stating? And then we also want everyone to start looking at the type of growth by comparing your data and looking at how are students working with the numbers. Are they able to efficiently use different strategies? Now everyone gravitates, even adults, towards a specific strategy that works for you, but it's nice to have a couple under your belt. They're learning many more than a couple and going deeper into that. The other piece that I want to point out and bring forth is we've had parents who are, majority of us were not taught like this. The way the Envisions program picks apart numbers and gets you to think about breaking down the number into sets of 10 when you're adding and subtracting. A lot of people do this automatically as adults. The children are taught how to do that. So we would love to have a parent night to help parents understand and play with this a little bit. Everyone does have access for the Envisions online access at home, yet, and they get the same kind of a repeat from the introduction that's given to all the students in class, and many parents have found that useful, but it would help to have a parent night, to have some of the discussions where they can ask questions of why are you doing this? What does this mean? How can I help my child? I've had several parent meetings, and I'm sure you have as well, with just how can we help our child? Because there's nothing worse than feeling helpless because we weren't taught like this. And so that's one of the other goals that we have. Okay.
So if we move on to Goal 2. So again, Goal 2 is the same for Kennedy, K through 2, and Maloney, 3 through 5. So basically, this goal is focusing on ELA, and much of what Mrs. Desai shared really transfers to ELA. The big difference, I think, between math and ELA is math is very clear-cut with regard to standards, and ELA is really more of sometimes we enter that gray area. We are still in the process of building units, fine-tuning units, and it's really important that we make sure that we are covering all of the standards in the units that we are teaching. And so part of what will help us is if we create a system to share data and with everyone, we have to make sure vertically that we are covering exactly what we need, that we don't want to find that we have any gaps. So we're trying to streamline the process, make it more efficient, so that teachers will have data at their fingertips rather than going back to CUME folders or pulling out 3 different lists from 3 different assessments that they did throughout the year. So we're just trying to be more efficient and with that piece. So again, We do have the STAR Renaissance testing that is for grades 2 through 5. And we just talked about how we are really in the beginning of that process, but I can tell you that it is amazing that you can go in and pull reports and actually look at individual students and see what standards they need additional support. It's so helpful. So again, the next step there is going to be, how do we best support our students? How do we adjust our instruction? How do we differentiate? And how do we plan our RTI to meet the needs of students? The Fountas and Pinnell we have been using, and we do use that K through 5. And Foundations piece, which is the phonics phonemic awareness piece, that is for grades K through 2. The other piece I'd like to add is also when we're looking at students in areas of challenge, we need to make sure that we have in place whatever it is they need. So, for example, I'll give you a prime example. If we are seeing students in grade 3 who are still struggling with that phonics piece, we need to have support built in for them. So it's truly not just a K through 2. At grade 3, it's more of an RTI piece and a supportive piece. So that's really basically what ELA looks like. So again, you know, we do have a lot of work ahead of us. We need to make sure, again, that we have no gaps, K through 5, and that we have assessments, and that we are able to take that data and help us inform instruction.
And I should point out, we're in our third year and final year for the literacy workshops this year for K through 2. And the consultant is actually going in the classroom, working alongside with the teachers, working specifically in areas where the teachers say, I want to refine my skills in such and such area. So you're already seeing that strong foundation being built in literacy as well.
Yeah, and I would say that we're going to be certainly seeing a focus for writing. So Dr. Thompson has been working with that so that we can, so I expect that we'll be having more conversations centered around writing as we move forward.
And our third goal, we want to focus on family engagement and increase parental and community involvement in our schools. And it's one thing to look at family engagement and come up with ideas on your own. We want to survey our community to see what kinds of things do they want to see in our school systems, and to survey, reaching out to the families to look at your areas of expertise that you could bring to our schools and share and support us and have a back and forth exchange, because there is a lot of talent in our community. A lot of the teachers have informally done this, where they'll have parents saying, oh, I want to come in, and they share their expertise, and the children really benefit. We'd like to survey the community and then use that as our starting point and allow them to come in and share their expertise. And then the math program also folds in nicely to support parents' understanding of Envisions.
And I would like to add that we're focused on that college and career readiness. It is amazing to have members of the community come in and share what it is they do for a living. Because when we look at educating our students, we shouldn't be just focused on today. Today is important, but we also want to know and understand what it is we can do to maybe just spark some interest. You never know when that's going to happen. So being able to provide as many opportunities to do that, I think, is really invaluable. And who better than to look at members of our community to do that, so. And finally, goal 4, we're really very, very excited about this K through 5. We have visited the middle school and have been really impressed by their PBIS, their positive behavior intervention system that they have in place here at the middle school. And one of the things that I think that we have heard is it's so very important is that we have consistency for our students with expectations K through 5. We want school to be a safe place for students. We want school to be a place where students are proud to be there and proud of who they are and proud of their accomplishments, and we want to be able to acknowledge that. And PBIS helps us do that. It helps us use similar language, K through 5, so that students understand what the expectations are, who we are as a school and a community. So included here, we do have a timeline, and this is really going to be year 1 of a 3-year initiative. The administrators and we each brought one teacher. We attended a conference back in October, I think.
Right, I think it was
Yeah, I think October. And it was just a wealth of information. So we have put together an initial committee where we have created a PowerPoint that we're going to be rolling out at our December staff meetings. This is such a huge initiative, but I really do think that it is well worth the effort. We take a look at the number of discipline reports we receive, and, you know, as principals, as you're processing that, that means that is sometime that the child is not in the class. So you know, we want to have kids in the classroom, we want to have them learning, we want to have them engaged, and what we want to do is minimize those behaviors that impact teaching and learning. And this is a well-entrenched program. There have been numerous studies, and what we have been reading is this is really the best model out there. So we do have a timeline, and as I said, we're looking at least 3 years. What we want to do, our first step is to identify one area that we want to focus on with regard to behavior. Could very well be the cafeteria. And you know, there's a lot of training that's involved with this, not only with students, but with staff, because we all have to be a part of this, and we all have to value this, and we also have to make sure that we follow through with this. So again, it's something that we want to be very thoughtful about as we move forward, and I think it's important enough that we take all of the necessary steps to ensure its success.
And I think one of the questions when we initially, early on, talked with staff, people mentioned, well, I like Open Circle. You can still like Open Circle. You can still use Open Circle with PBIS. The beauty of PBIS is the staff are involved. We work together, and we, as a community, would decide what are the expectations for behaviors in, say, the hallway. So everybody's on board with it. What are the kinds of positive expectations? What are the consequences if someone's not following it? How are we all going to take responsibility instead of walking by somebody stating, oh, that's such and such's classroom? Everyone will be able to stop by and say, oh, here's our expectations, and they're posted, and you say the same consistent thing. The presenters in the fall conference, there was a school in New Hampshire who took a full year just working on expectations, consequences, reward systems, posters, communication to family, a full year. And they had pictures, and they came and shared with us. They started with one area their first year and just talked about, and I think they picked the hallway, and that's all they spoke about for the whole year. What to expect in the hallway, what are we going to say, what are the reward systems, and everybody got on board, and then the other systems fell into place. So it is work of art when you look at what they did, because they have everything posted around their schools in those areas with the expectations clearly written. So even if someone didn't memorize them, if they're not normally in that area, they could look at the poster and they said, oh, any teacher, any staff member could walk by and say, oh, here are the expectations, this is what we're expecting, and I know you can do it, kind of a thing, and move forward. And they said most children respond very, very well to it.
And this involves everyone,
Everyone.
custodians, paraprofessionals, teachers. And we'll also be sharing a lot of information with parents once we
Yes.
have compiled that.
So am I reading this correctly, that you would expect to roll out your set of expectations by this spring?
So what we're going to do is, as I said, we're going to be rolling this out to the staff at our staff meetings in December. From that, we are then going to be asking for volunteers for a PBIS committee. And those people, those teachers, whoever is on this committee will then be working with their colleagues. We have to identify that one area. And again, it's about everybody's input, and it has to be valued by everyone for it to be successful. So yes, then we will be, because once you identify the area, then you have to come up with this matrix. You have to come up with a rubric, if you will.
So,
But you're
if you, excuse me.
Sorry, go ahead.
So if you're saying it needs everybody's input, will there be parent input? Will there be student input? Or you're saying it's teacher administrative?
Well, that's actually
yeah.
a very good question, because there should be a parent component to it. I guess what I would say, what I would answer at this point is, this is so new to us, and we're just in the very beginning stages. When the conference that we went to, I don't believe for their initial rollout of this, there was a parent piece to that community. However, I will tell you that our school council and the parents on our school council will be talking about that with them. I think that as we really get our feet under us, I think that then we can expand.
And they also pointed out in that school, they've been doing this for, I think, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So their first year, we're following our formatting like they did, starting with one area, developing expectations. But they also said, once they got rolling, then they had more parent input, and you're constantly refining, is something that the feedback they gave us. So it won't be a done deal. To answer your question, this is a very rigorous expectation we put on ourselves. By May, we're hoping to have one area that we've identified, that we have our 3 core values, because you have to start with everybody has 3 consistent core values that we all agree on, and then take one area and you flush out in that area, what are the expectations? What does it look like? Because we throw terms like respect. How many children can tell you what respect is? They have no clue. I'll be honest with you. So you have to say, well, what does respect look like? And you start prompting them. Then they can start putting the pieces together, but even then they struggle. So we have to roll out, what does this particular core area expectation that we have look like, and put it in child-friendly terms. And so we're hoping by May to have that one area piece done. There are many areas in the school. You've got the classroom, the hallway, the bathroom, the cafeteria, the recess. Am I missing anything? Transitions, bus. So that's the piece we were thinking of doing.
Thank you. Thanks. Go ahead, Bill.
If I missed this, I apologize. Was there any reflection or report on how last year's goals were? Because I know I get these every year, but I never know how last year's turned out. Did we?
We didn't come back to these last
Last
year.
year?
It's on our
Are
calendar.
they connected at all
To what?
in terms of last year's improvement plan? Not just for you guys, for each of the schools?
We didn't approve them last year.
I don't even think we.
They didn't come to, we didn't
Yes, we
have
did. We had them. Yes,
the
we did.
school improvement.
We did.
I think we had that discussion a few weeks ago, and
Okay, all right.
Good question.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that, because that's my concern, is that we see these, and this is a 3-year plan, but if we don't see it in next year's, and we don't see it in the year after that, we don't really know. And, to say, what are our expectations of behavior, or however you want to call this, we have expectations, we have a student handbook. So we have them. This is a new buzzword, this is a new program, this is a new, and it's getting everybody to buy into it, which I think is fabulous, because in the past, we have a school council or administration who creates a handbook, we hope people read it, and the students never even know what it is or what it means. So I love that you want to make it a community effort. I think that is laudable, but I would encourage you that even though the students might not be in the planning of that, they need to be involved in those discussions to know what that means.
Absolutely, and there
Yes.
will be assemblies. I mean, that this is just so multifaceted. What I would tell you that is different with this is that the focus is on making those choices and acknowledging that. Because typically what happens with our current system, you'll walk through the hallways and say, great job and thumbs up, but what do you get? You get that discipline slip, and then you're really dealing with that behavior. So it really, it's meant to take the spotlight off of that and focus on those right choices. So
And
I
I
would say
think-
that's the biggest difference.
Well, and I also think I'm going to be curious at the end of the year to see how the positive behavior was promoted, because I do hear a lot of, this is the expected behavior, this is the problem, and I'd like to see more of, this is the positive. Or
Absolutely.
these are the good things that are
Exactly.
coming, or I see an expected behavior, good job, instead of this is unexpected,
Exactly.
You only say that even to my own kids, you say it so many times, it's like,
Right.
whatever.
And so,
So I think.
yeah, you're right.
And
I would like to see that when
Right.
you come back to present this information, you know, I would like to see that information, is how did you reflect that positive behavior, and not just here are the expected behaviors, here is the list of things you need to follow, but how are those students
Right.
being
Because-
positively identified
And if we
as,
don't do that piece, then.
doesn't work.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
so that
Then
is-
you're
that is
lost.
huge. So one
Right.
of the really important discussions that we need to have is, what are we going to put in place to acknowledge that behavior?
correct.
So that is, because then that's how we have to look to teachers and paras and custodians and say, how do we want to do this? Because everybody has to do it.
And I think that there's a home component to that as well.
Absolutely.
That, you know, that comes with that. I just think, you know, that would be something to present when you come back and you say, how did you do in your school improvement plan? That would be one of the things that I would be looking for.
Absolutely.
And just to piggyback on what Bill said, when you do come back and you talk about these, you know, back on the goal 1 and goal 2, I just had some things that I would like to see information on. You talked a lot about data, and I would like to see how the data is going to be used. So for instance, you have the STAR program, which is great, but how is that informing your instruction? So number one, what are you doing for those kids who have superseded that STAR program? Are they being challenged? I know it's coming, I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of information from the middle school, but not only is it informing your RTI information, but you also need to look, because that student growth percentage on Park is changing. And so when those students do better on Park, the gap is harder to reach, is higher to reach. So I just, that's a question that I have. What are you doing with that data? And the other question I had is, again, what's gonna be put in place for those who need additional support and challenges? So when you do come back and talk about your school improvement plan, that's what I'm gonna be looking for, based on what you gave us. What was put in place? Because I know in the district improvement plan, it says that we're going to be tweaking the RTI or Kid Talk, whatever you want to call it, but I just, you know, that's gonna lead to that. So those are the questions that I'm gonna have when you come back and say, how did we do on our school improvement plan? You know, those are just some of the questions that I have.
If I could just follow that up, STARS does offer, you know, extension activities for students who perform well on that assessment. So that's built into the system.
Right,
Are
but
we using
how are they using it in the classroom? I guess that's.
Exactly.
Like, what's,
Right.
because
Are we
it's
using
new.
it? How are we using it?
Right.
What's
Right.
the progress?
Right.
Makes
And
sense.
not only how we're bridging the gap between students, but how we're bridging the gap between the schools. We have
Yes.
2 elementary schools, and we have a gap. And how are we bridging that gap?
And I just want to jump in. I was going to mention the same thing about how do you then use the data from the assessments. But switching to the PBIS thing, in the building I'm in right now, we're in our 3rd year of PBIS, and you are following it to a T, exactly. You need to set up your expectations first, and everything falls in line from that. Our building, we're the Rams, so we're respectful, accountable, motivated, and safe. And you can grab any kid anytime and say, what are the expectations? And they can parrot them back like that. So that if you see a kid, say, running in the hallway, not that that happens often, but you could say, what expectation are you not following? And he would say, I guess I'm not being safe. And so you can hammer those home. It doesn't matter if it's the custodian, if it's a bus driver, it's anyone. They could parrot back exactly what the expectations are. But that's where it all starts, is setting up the expectations. Like, I think Justin has an acronym, but, you know, try to hang on something like that. But,
May we call you?
Yep, I have a lot of stuff I'll share with you. Yeah, I'll send that
We'll
when I
call
get to
you.
school
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
So,
Thank you.
yep.
Thanks.
But you're following it to a T,
Well, thank you.
so.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, ladies. Next, we have Mr. Cameron and Mr. Dudek to speak about their improvement plans.
Who's going first?
Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming. Or staying, I should say.
Coming back.
Not that late.
So, I think the middle school is first. The agenda might read the middle school, I guess the MCAS Park results and improvement plan, and then the middle school improvement plan. These 2 plans for the middle school are so connected. With the committee's approval, I'd like to just kind of present both at the same time. Would that be possible?
Sure.
I think it would be more of a succinct presentation. So the slides, I guess, are sharing the park and MCAS results. I think the first slide,
MCAS is only science, right? Park
Correct.
was math and ELA.
so thank you for clarifying that. In the middle school last year, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders took park for ELA and park for math. And then 8th graders took 8th grade science. So the first slide just shares a comparison, which is difficult to do because there's not a lot of comparisons out there, especially publicly, because you're comparing two different tests. So this is the only one that I found, which is, I think, currently on our report card on the DESE website. And it's just accountability data from 2015 and 2016. Again, what it doesn't do for the user or for anyone who is on the computer looking at this, it doesn't specify that the 2015 data is strictly MCAS data, whereas the 2016 data is primarily park data. What we're so proud of as a middle school is the fact that we are narrowing gaps when you compare the two assessments where park was a more difficult assessment. And as Dr. Thompson said about an hour ago, you know, as a committee and as a group of administrators and as a school district and a community, we decided to move forward with the park because last year's park is more like this year's MCAS. And it was a decision made to better prepare our students for the present and the future. So this one slide just shares with you that we have some gaps that are shrinking, and a lot of the school improvement plan is really phase 2, phase 3 of different goals that are connected to our accountability data and the fact that we are narrowing those gaps. So the next few slides, I'm just going to kind of flip through, are just some data points that, to be very honest, what the STARS data is giving our teachers, primarily our ELA teachers and our math teachers, is opportunity to take the data that's given by those STARS assessments and embed it immediately into their curriculum. And as discussed last year, and on page, it's not numbered, but when you get to the page, I guess it's page 2. Actually, no, I guess it is page 1. So support second year and first year implementation of STARS. So of course the middle school is in our second year of implementation of STARS. One of the goals that you see in the school improvement goal number 1 for the middle school is a development of a data wall and a tracking source for all our students in our intervention classes and all the students in our enrichment classes. One of the reasons why we think we are making progress as a school is with the STARS data that is given to our teachers, and that live data is implemented into those classes, especially those age period classes. So the age period class, again, is the enrichment period and the intervention period. So a teacher, all students in 6th through 8th take STARS. In 7th and 8th grade, the STAR assessment will share with us whether or not, going into a brand new quarter, a student should be designated for an intervention class or designated for an enrichment class. Currently, we have about 75 7th and 8th grade students who are in intervention classes in their age period class. The average size of an intervention class is about 15 right now. What we saw last year with our intervention classes is every quarter when we reset and that data wall moved around, because our data wall in our RTI team actually has students' names that we move around and place in either tier 1 or tier 2. So that's one of the things that our RTI team is doing. We place them in a subgroup in tier 2, which would be an intervention class. And then the students take our progress monitored in that intervention class. The STAR data is used to build the curriculum in that intervention class, and then the students who are in the intervention classes are monitored approximately every 3 weeks with a quick assessment with STARS, a diagnostic 15-minute STAR assessment to monitor their progress. And if they make effective progress, then at the end of the quarter, they might be moved down to, in our data wall, we actually take the magnet of the student's name, move them down to Tier 1 in RTI, and place them in an enrichment group. Tier 1 at the middle school is very important because we are targeting the students who have historically in elementary school and middle school done actually well on MCAS and done well last year on PARC. And we know those are the students that are the hardest to make growth. A lot of schools and a lot of districts have figured it out good 10 years ago that target only those students who are not doing well because they have such a tremendous opportunity for growth, because that's the metrics that's used in all of this. As a middle school, we decided, and this was a conscious decision 18 months ago, let's target those students who also are performing strong. So right now, in Q2 here at the middle school, we have actually, with the virtual middle school consortium, we have 16 enrichment classes that are happening in Tier 1, targeting those students again, who 5 years ago, we might have said, well, they're at a ceiling, they're in a good place, let's again just target those students who are struggling and might need support. Do you have a question, Jane?
Yeah, I do. I think that's fabulous, by the way. I think that's a model that more schools should use. But I have a question. If a student is performing low or needs the intervention piece, in both math and reading, how does that, because there's only one H period.
There's only
How does
one
that
H
work?
period, but we also have a Title I math program, and we have a Title I ELA program that if they're struggling in both, we then have them eligible for Title I support in either math or ELA, which is done outside of the H period.
Okay.
Math particularly is also a second class outside of that H period. So if we have a student who's profoundly struggling in both, and we think either 1 quarter or more than 1 quarter might need a second ELA class, then they're designated for that H period ELA intervention, and then they might have a second math class in opposite of, if they don't take band, that's the easiest fit, but it could also be in the STEM block, which we kind of say STEM is kind of an enrichment, but STEM is available for all our students, actually. So moving ahead to the actual improvement plan, the MCAS improvement plan, I'm kind of looking at the first goal, which is target and give RTI Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions to those who have been identified through STARS during the school day through a new middle school master schedule implemented, again, last year. So I really just shared that out. The action plan reads about the change in our master schedule, but if you look at the assessment, that's the new bullet point. So I heard just 15 minutes ago, how does last year's plan connect with this year's plan? This is pretty much last year's MCAS improvement plan, and it worked for us. So we were not looking to really put forth any new robust goals that were just kind of out there. What we did was we tweaked what we had last year that, again, we felt worked for us, and we're using different data tracking systems. Again, that data wall is one of them. And I think we're better using the RTI process. One of the things that the RTI team is going to do for the December faculty meeting is present exactly what the RTI process looks for the middle school to all our teachers, to our paraprofessionals and such. Because I think we're at a place where we're doing really good work, but I don't know if like a middle school teacher could fully explain exactly the big picture of what H period is doing and how students are making that progress in those jumps from Tier 1, Tier 2, and so forth. The second goal in the MCAS improvement plan is just a continued support of the writing aspect that is a part of MCAS and was a part of Park last year, which is the open response, of course. We still see tremendous upside and potential in having students practice their open response writing skills. And that's being done throughout the building in PE classes and art classes. It's being done throughout. So I just kind of brushed upon the MCAS improvement plan. I really didn't so much get into the data that's a part of this packet, because again, I restate, we look at this data, we discuss this data, but the STARS data is something that we're using and we're implementing every day in that H period class, but also in the core classes as well. The other role that our Title I plays in all of this support is the Title I lead teachers right now are the paras, which they were mentioned, with the presentation of the elementary school. They are the lead teachers in supporting STARS in the district. They also get out to the different classes and they help teachers implement the STARS data and the suggestions done by Renaissance in STARS. So if Renaissance says this is a good focus activity to do with the group of students who are struggling with word attack skills, then not only are teachers trained to implement that with that group, but the Title I support staff are able to help that as well. Any questions about the MCAS improvement plan? Okay. So I jumped around a little in the school improvement plan. Why don't I just touch upon the goals that I haven't mentioned? So just starting on page 1, the middle school has actually been in UBD stage 1 for a number of years now, especially the essential question piece and the having the end in mind piece. Dr. Thompson just yesterday presented to the middle school faculty where we're headed next as a district, which is phase 2, because the middle school is primed and ready to enter into phase 2 with UBD. So this first goal, we're pretty much in really good shape right now, even though it does have a timeline of May 2017. The second goal is to implement middle school Big Ideas math program. I've heard great feedback from the 2 6th grade teachers, because right now this implementation is only in 6th grade. I actually attended the professional development that was in early fall of Big Ideas, and they left that professional development just, wowed and very impressed at not only the program, but the professional development that was offered. And the person who led the professional development was fantastic. There was a lot of things that those math teachers took right away and brought into the classes just the very next year. I believe I've already mentioned and discussed the support of the second year of STARS here at the middle school, and I think the elementary school principals and I talked about the support of STARS in the elementary and the high school as well. Moving on to page 2. Revising science curriculum 6 to 8 to reflect new standards. I just spoke with the science teachers yesterday with the support of Dr. Thompson. We're going to look to find those days like right before vacation where there's not a lot of call-outs and there's more sub-availability to get the middle school science teachers together almost once a month to talk about this transition. Because I'm hearing from the middle school science teachers that they need that support, and that makes a lot of sense. I believe I already touched upon the formalization and implementation of the use of RTI here in the building and our data wall, which is mentioned, I think, in this goal.
Justin, can I just interrupt for a second?
Sure can.
Did I miss the science results?
You
Grade
did
8.
not. You did not. They are actually not a part of this presentation. We really just focused upon the ELA and the math. The science can very much be available for you.
I'd like to see it.
We pretty much stayed status quo, which the science is always a difficult assessment for 8th graders. I think as the committee knows, it's the 3rd test they take in about a 6-week period, and they're at a place of just kind of being tested out, which is no excuse, of course, But they're also, as the committee, I believe, knows, are being assessed on things that were taught in 6th and 7th grade as well. But, you know, Bill, I have looked at those results, and they pretty much they're kind of flatlined right now.
Can we get a copy of that?
Of course.
Can we get a copy?
Absolutely. Okay, page 3, school improvement goal number 2, ensuring the social and emotional well-being of all students. We are in year 5, I believe, of our PBIS initiative. We have kind of done a relaunch of it to focus on our older students. We did a survey at the end of last year. We found that the outgoing 8th grade didn't necessarily buy in as much as the 6th and 7th graders did. We looked at our attendance of the PBIS reward activities, which are optional for those students who get PBIS tickets. Those events were attended mostly by 6th and 7th grade students. We looked at our enrollment of our PBIS student club, and primarily those club members were 6th and 7th grade students. So the PBIS club last year looked at how do we better engage our 8th graders with PBIS. So one of the things we did was we aligned our school store with PBIS, and on the back of each Chargers Care PBIS ticket is a QR code that can be scanned for a coupon in the school store. And right now, our data, which are tickets being turned into the school store, are pretty consistent throughout the 3 grades, which is good because that's also data sharing that teachers are giving out the tickets. But it's also suggesting that 8th graders are taking some ownership and pride in the tickets when given. You know, when a ticket was given last year, they just submitted it for a drawing and for potential invite to that reward activity. But, you know, I'm not saying this happened, but maybe last year and the years prior, some 8th graders would be like, oh, well, this is nice, and they kind of tossed it aside. Where now they actually look at it as money because it is, you know, a 25-cent, a 50-cent, or a $1 coupon for our school store. So we're seeing nice data that's available for our PBIS in kind of, if you want to call it PBIS Phase 2 or 2.0 here at the middle school. Increase student connections and adults in all classrooms and schools. That's just a year-long or every year we have this goal in our school improvement plan. Flipping ahead to the 4th page. Integrate technology throughout the curriculum, implement technology throughout the district. These are pretty much brand new goals. So I want to say every goal prior to this had some of that goal has been a part of prior years. The Chromebook initiative, of course, is a new initiative throughout the district. They continue to define other forms of technology integration. We just offered a brand new coding club that is offered for the very first time in the winter session of this after-school program. Our goal for that coding club is to actually develop a coding curriculum and a coding unit for our STEM classes. Just like 6 or 7 years ago, STEM started as a club in this building. That's how we're looking to kind of build it. The other piece that I just want to make mention is we took a model from Cumberland High School, and we had an innovation assembly where we tried to generate a lot of excitement about students and what their ideas might be for this school improvement plan. We wanted to hear students' voices. So every student in their ELA class wrote to me about what idea they would want to see in this school improvement plan. And the faculty and the school council voted for an idea of bringing up to phase and bringing into the middle school a STEM or innovation technology lab, a 21st century lab that Photography Associates has offered very kindly a $1,000 donation that has already been matched by one company, and the PTO, the middle school PTO, has already said that a significant amount of the fundraising that they will do this year, and they were upwards of $20,000 last year, is going to go towards this robotic STEM lab here at the middle school.
So whose idea was it?
It was Casey Goyette that has not been publicly shared with the students.
It was now.
I don't know how many students are watching.
Casey.
What I promise, if it was up to me, I would have an assembly every 2 weeks, but my staff don't necessarily support that model. So our next assembly is celebrating our fantasy reading, which we have in December of every year. So we're going to bring together a couple different celebrations. So in a few weeks, that's going to be publicly shared. Casey does know, though, and his mother knows as well. He knows there's a lot of work to do.
He gets his own office, right?
He gets his own office.
It was part of the
Yes,
package.
he's already shared he wants a flat screen TV in
Oh.
there, so. Okay, moving on to the next page. We are preparing for grade 8, as Dr. Thompson said earlier. Grade 8 will be taking MCAS online this year. The STARS assessment and that being implemented last year, I think certainly puts the school in a good place of students just having a comfort and a confidence of taking an online test. We are also very fortunate to have the technology, and thanks to our technology department, Dr. Thompson, and Sean and Sam, we have the technology, the capacity and the technology to have all our 8th graders take the ELA and the math online this year. This last one on this page, develop a digital citizenship in the school, is probably the only goal that I think was mentioned by school council and myself 3 or 4 years ago. It's probably the one that, has kind of tripped us up, and for some reason, we just haven't had even a false start on it. So the school council and I talked about this one in great detail in the November meeting. This is one I think the school council is going to really take a lead on. School goal number 4, create opportunities for more shared and shared leadership throughout the middle school. These 2 goals have been pretty much in the school improvement plan for the last few years. And I think if you are ever to attend a middle school faculty meeting, you will find teachers presenting to each other. And I've done exit tickets, I've done surveys, and I think teachers have a better value of that time, that faculty meeting time. This started maybe 3 years ago with pretty much a goal that was written in a very similar fashion. And I recall we passed out, Dr. Laporte and I passed out an article entitled Why Faculty Meetings Are a Waste of Time. And that article really just shared, the fact that faculty meetings sometimes are just used for calendar things, talk about, the problem with, gum chewing in a school and things like that. Things that I think the article shared that emails can probably handle a lot of those items. And that was it. I'm sorry if I raced through that, but I really wanted to make the most of here.
Any questions for Mr. Cameron? Don't wanna miss anybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Or do you want to show that video?
This is, I'm not gonna, so there's a YouTube video that when I share the science results, I will also share this video. This is a video of the data wall. Even though the data wall was not up last year, what we did, and this took a long time to do, is we took last year's quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we reset this data wall 4 times. And it was a very visual representation of students in quarter 1 who left tier 2 and went down to tier 1. And there was, at the end of this video, I don't have my phone, are the data points about the number of students who, again, made progress through STARS, through the H-period intervention or enrichment, and left that intervention period. It's a very visual representation of the progress and the great work that the teachers do here at the middle school. So I'll make that video available for all of you along with the science results.
All right, good evening, everyone. So before I start, I just want to say a few things. I think I don't know, the last 3 weeks, I've been surrounded by people with bronchitis and pneumonia, and apparently I'm the one that started all that, so I've been avoiding. I've been avoiding people. I don't feel very good, but I'm here, and I'm glad to be here. I do have some energy right now. I've been sort of in and out. The other piece that I wanted to share with you is the school store at the middle school. I did earn a few bucks through this year. I thought I had some pretty good money. I had $5 on me, but I went into the store and he's marked up those prices. I mean, that T-shirt that I thought would be like $8, I had $3 in my pocket. He was charging $26 for it. So, I mean, whatever he's saying, it's taking a lot to get that T-shirt. So he's marking up those prices. So,
Emails coming in right now.
So I'm here to present our MCAS scores and also the school improvement plan. I do want to begin by saying that I am extremely proud of what the high school has done the last 4 or 5 years. You will see an analysis of MCAS. We did dip in our MCAS scores in all 3 subjects, which at first glance I was very disappointed with, and I took it personally. But speaking to some people, sometimes you need to realize that depending on the number of students that take the MCAS scores, we had approximately 100 sophomores last year that took your ELA in math, and then we had about 133 or 135, depending on how you look at it, took the bio. And we did have some significant subgroups that did not do very well, which really affects where we go. So when you look at your ELA results, just as an example, from 2015 to 16, we had 97% of our students in 2015 score proficient to advanced. That dropped down to 89%. We're looking at 7 or 8 kids. And looking at the subgroups, we are looking at specific content areas that we need to go and hit with those specific students. They did just take some retakes in ELA, and we're working on that, and that's something that I'd like to really bring up with you. I am really excited about this MCAS improvement plan because I think this is an overall goal of what we're looking to do. This was collaborative. We identified one thing that we feel will increase student achievement. So that's something that we'll be looking at. So again, just looking at the data from an ELA standpoint, we are at 97% down to 89%. We did have a little increase with our needs improvement from 3 to 11%, and we had 1% failing, which was approximately 1 student.
Mike,
Yep.
are you looking at, it would be interesting to see in that needs improvement category, how many are 1 question away from moving up to that next category?
And that's true.
That's important, because that says a lot, and if you can identify the area, it can really shift things around.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point there. It could be 1 or 2 multiple choice questions, or it could be that 1 open response question that they decided that they just didn't want to do, which will go into sort of our improvement plan for MCAS. But, I think there's a lot going on. I think, you can't just look at it from a year to year. I think there has to be a cohort. And there's a lot of things and scenarios that happen. And, when you look at percentages, we don't have 150 to 200 students in. So when you're looking at a 10% increase or decrease, you're looking at 10 kids. And if you have subgroups, and some of them have higher numbers when you come from a special ed standpoint, a demographic, whatever the case is, which I don't want to bring up in terms of specifics because it's such a small group, that is something that you have to take a look at. So when we look at our math results, this is where there was a larger decrease. So we had 89% of our students have proficient to advanced in 2015. We were down to 71%. And looking at that, you see that there was a 22% of our students, so approximately 21 students that scored a needs improvement, and 7 of our students failed math, which they just, I believe, just took the retake. Looking at your bio, and this I'm actually pleasantly surprised with, because when we were talking about this a couple of years ago, I mentioned what our core sequences were with science. So our science core sequences, a couple of years ago, we had majority of our freshmen were doing biology 1, and the majority of our sophomores were doing biology 2. I decided to take a risk and say, we need to go and step this up. We can't have majority of our kids taking 2 years of bio, which really limits the amount of science sections that they want to take. And a lot of our students are looking to get into the sciences. So this year, or last year's class that took this, so again, we had about 80% of our kids take 2 years of bio. Last year's cohort, I'd say approximately 50% took biology for 1 year, which meant that we had 30 or so students that typically in the past would go and take 2 years and then take the bio MCAS in their second year. So I thought there would be a drop, but I am pleasantly surprised to see that we have 31% of our students increase in score advanced on that, with 47%. So yes, when you're looking at percentages, we had 86% that were proficient to advance. In 2016 was 78%, but we're also looking at probably 30 to 35 students that typically would have taken a much slower paced biology 1 and 2 sequence and then go and take the MCAS biology in their second year. So that is something that we took as a risk, and I feel that that's helped us to push to where we want to go, particularly when we're looking at our AP as well. So that's giving us more of a population to work with when we're looking at AP Bio and AP Chem and AP Physics and so forth to get our students to where they are. So again, when we're looking at English and math, those are our sophomores. Biology are now our 9th and 10th graders, which is majority of our 10th graders, and then you're looking at 50% of our freshmen that are doing it. So we had 133 that took the Bio MCAS. Just as an idea, or just so you can take a look, I decided to put in what the MCAS question type and standards look like. So when you're looking at your ELA, your math, your bio, those are broken down into multiple choice, open responses, and short answers. We've always looked at the open response questions for our MCAS. Again, multiple choice, to your point, students can get needs improvement and be 1 question away from being proficient. So that is something that I think that we definitely need to look at. But when we looking at short answers and open responses, that's always been something that we've taken a look at. How do we prepare students for an open response question? How do we get them to appropriately answer the question and just be prepared? Last year, I did mention that several of our students just did not do the writing response or the open response question because they just felt they were overwhelmed with that. So that's kind of where we are in terms of our idea for this year. So this is a screenshot of a Padlet app that we have. So again, when we're looking at technology integration, I'm trying to model that as much as possible. This was in a curriculum meeting, which is, I'm glad that we have our 5 curriculum meetings built into our new contract with teachers so that we can spend time on curriculum instruction and engaging lessons and so forth. So what I did with our teachers was that I asked them to review the content data and identify areas of weakness. So these were all of our teachers in the building, and it wasn't just our English or math or science, but everyone took a look at the data and basically just plugged away what they saw as areas for improvement. And if you look, I wish I had a pointer, but I'm looking at one. It's a second column, read open response questions before reading the passage so that students can read with a goal in mind and annotate their text. They felt that was something, that was an area or a strategy that that students could work on. Strategy, third column, focus on numbered paragraphs. The next one, passage length. We discussed when looking at the actual test that passages were longer than before. We needed to work with close reading and annotation skills to get students to stay focused on what the text is saying and not get lost. So these are things that our teachers identified by even looking at the exam and looking at the questions that, wow, some of these questions are really long. There's 3 or 4 or 5 different components to it, and our kids are not reading the questions, or they're reading the narrative, then they're looking at those questions later, and they're not connecting the two. So that was something that all of our teachers in all content areas, and I want to say that, and I'm going to repeat that, because I think in the past, a lot of our teachers, no fault to their own, would say, this is an ELA MCAS test. So these are our English teachers that should be taking care of ELA MCAS. The math is geared towards math. So everyone else would get sort of lost in that and say, this isn't really my responsibility or my end goal. So when you're looking at the next slide, this was math. And you can see in the first column, focus on short answer questions. Compare 8th to 10th grade data. Second column, get students to stick with a question, stick-to-itiveness, which I think is a great phrase that I think a lot of our teachers were using, that our students weren't really sticking with the question. Continue working on multiple step problems and explaining answers, and then decoding questions. And then finally, when you were looking at our bio or science, the second column, answering multi-part open-ended questions, continued review of strategies for answering questions. So I thought that there was a clear theme that we needed to work on. So for us, we are working on, wow, the magic word, annotation. All right? We're going to break it down and be as simple. Okay, so actually, no, okay, I'm sorry. So I apologize. So looking at the focused approach, we obviously are going to be looking at focused skills from each of the content areas. So this is what the old MCAS style improvement plan would look at. So looking at English, they're going to be looking at, as an example, clarifying distinctions between nonfiction and fiction annotation strategies. Math, we need to go work on box and whisker plots and histograms. We need to look at multiplicative inverse, estimation and sense. And science, we need to look at physiologies of body, cell biology, cellular evidence, and so forth. So a lot of those are going to be happening specifically in those courses because that's what's been identified as our weaknesses with our 10th graders. Now, again, sorry, the magic number, school-wide goal or question is we need to look at annotating text. So we want our students to improve comprehension using proper annotation of text. We want passive readers. So again, this to me, I think is what's really important is that we passively read. We teach passive reading strategies rather than looking at how do we actively read? How do we really make text come alive? How do we construct meaning out of and make connections? So develop a mindset, and this could be, when we're talking about a growth mindset, but a stick-to-itiveness. So, Bill, please don't take this from me yet, okay? So give me some credit. But this is something this was a phrase that I think it was actually one of my math teachers. Yeah, I know. Get that highlighter out. But sticking to the question. So right now we're looking at annotation strategies. How are we going to do that? How are we going to look at it? And I think this is really important. So right now, our goal at our last curriculum meeting, at our last faculty meeting, I modeled certain ways for us to annotate. We're looking at what annotation means, what are some model strategies and best practices to do that. And, so as an example, I walked into an academic support room. The warm-up activity was an annotation of a paragraph from an MCAS style question. And the students, and again, I'm leaving this up to the teachers because I think there's multiple ways of annotation from a technique standpoint. Some like to have coding and, SPs for spelling, and there's highlighting. You can go and, put things on the side. That I'm going to leave up to them. But one of the things was just picking out what vocabulary words they didn't understand. Second one was looking at what's the main idea. And third, how do we support, or what evidence is supporting that main idea? Those are 3 simple things, but I think that if students are able to do that prior to answering a question, then we're going to be in a better place. Research supports that when, with proper annotation and when text comes alive, that that the academic achievement raises. So for me, a great MCAS-style goal is annotation, and this is a school-wide goal that we're going to do, not just in English and science and math, but we're doing this in music and art and PE and so forth. So there is a guide, there's an article on annotation, and this is something that we're going to look at. So I just want to give you sort of just an example. Oh, you can't actually click on this? So there's no way to, okay. I thought I was able to be able to click on one of these videos, but.
So let me ask you a question. So
Yeah.
you're teaching students to do this, you're modeling this both on paper and on computer?
Yes.
It's harder to do that on a
So,
computer.
so that's been a question with my department heads is, how do you want us to do this? And looking at our one-to-one rollout, I think, again, my biggest thing with the Chromebook is to go and say to a kid, this isn't a toy, this isn't a selfie stick, this isn't a gaming device, this is an instructional tool for all of us. So when teachers get these Chromebooks in front of kids, one piece that they can look at is how do we annotate text? Simple, Google Docs, there's an editing feature, there's comment features, there's peer editing. If they want to be able to annotate and break down text, they'll be able to do that just using Google Docs. Now, if they want to go and just be able to teach simple annotation by using highlighters or circling things or having some sort of coded box, I'm okay with that as long as they're breaking down the text, they're making it alive, and they're building connections. Because if they're doing that, they're doing more than just passively reading something, looking at questions and saying, I don't know. And I think that's something that we've been looking at. So, yeah, do you mind, so looking at the Raven. So, I don't know if anyone's looked at this, but this is a great website. So Genius.com is, there's thousands of lyrics to different songs, to movie scripts, to anything that you could find. And this is something that I found from, that's through Genius, where you have the lyrics, or it's not even the lyrics, it's the,
Passage.
it's Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven. So if you go and click on certain quotes, you'll see that there's contributors to the annotation. So if you're looking to the right, so 'tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. What does that mean? So now students are able to go and look, okay, so somebody who's a contributor that they found and used, you're now modeling sort of a way to annotate, and now they're creating visuals as well to this. Just to add to that, if you go to the top, you could actually play the Raven, which to me will be able to break down something that I had difficulty with. But so if you click on that, actually, there's no volume. So, but this is something that teachers can go and use, and it's a different way for them to be able to model it. But again, when you're looking at poetry, or if you're looking at something that looks difficult for you, you can go onto a site like Genius. You can go and look at lyrics to Dave Matthews Band, to Led Zeppelin, to whatever. And this is something that kids find meaning with, it's relevant to them, and they're going to be excited about. But the added component is that you have contributors to that they can now click on a sentence and see how are people using that or looking at that or interpreting that in their own way. So that is something that I was able to model with the teachers. The next one that I found extremely interesting is what's going on in this picture. So this is a New York Times. So if you click on that, and so what's going on in this picture? So this is intriguing time images stripped of their captions and an invitation to students to discuss them live. So what I believe happens is that New York Times will go and post a picture that can be interpreted any which way that people want to, right? That's what artwork's all about. When you're looking at a Picasso a painting, people are looking at it, interpreting it differently. But if you click on that one picture, so that was on the 28th, what happens is that students have a week. So teachers can go and take this picture. they could have it posted, they could ask students in a warm-up activity, can you go and look at this picture and tell me, what do you see, what do you feel, what do you sense? And then you can go and post in their blog what people are seeing. So here's your prompt. After looking closely at the image, think about these 3 questions. What's going on in this picture? What do you see that makes you say that? And what more can you find? So then there's a conversation box, and they post the next week. So that now students can go back with their teacher and look at how people are interpreting these images. This, to me, is a way to annotate. So it doesn't have to be that poem in English class. This could be in an art class. This could be in a current world history class. This could be in any sort of class that you can go look at. And this, to me, I think is extremely valuable, and I'm hoping that my teachers use it to be able to quote, annotate text. And this isn't text, this is a picture, or music, or lyrics, or whatever the case is. So that's our MCAS goal for this year. Anyone have any questions on that?
I would like to add, so the middle school discussed not only our results, but the high school results as well. Because the middle school has ownership on the students in the high school, and the dip that was made. So one of the things that we did was looked at the MCAS improvement plan for the high school, and I just want to share out, 30 seconds. I walked into a 8th grade history class. It was either yesterday or the day before, and every student had a Chromebook, and the teacher had groups, clusters of desks, and the students were annotating right there live in a Google shared doc. Within each group had a different Google doc that they were making comments on. So I think that's one of the things that, with the support of an assistant superintendent, we're making those bridges, and the goal for annotation should not just be at the high school. It has to be in 8th grade and 7th grade, and that language needs to come up to BMR. So, one of the things that I think is important is that, we're sharing and there's a bridge between these plans.
Mm-hmm. And I think you are seeing that. I think in the last couple of years, again, with our improvement plan, you're going to see certain things, RTI, PBIS, UBD, these are all embedded in all of our school improvement plans. Again, this is something that we take for granted. We think that students are reading and taking notes and highlighting. But when you ask a student and ask your kids, the assignment is to go and take notes on chapter or section 4, which is 10 pages long. I, for one, would take 8 pages of notes. Justin may take, I don't know, he might write 5 words down because that's what's important to him. Are we teaching note-taking? How does that look like? So again, a lot of our students can read text and break it down and understand it and do very well. Right now, we're looking at just building a common foundation and a common definition of what annotation looks like, and then building off of that. But at the same time, looking at not just annotating text, but annotating anything, so that it comes alive. And then we're going back to the rigor, the relevance, the realization of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I'm really excited about that MCAS style goal, because it's not just looking at concepts that we're missing on the 2 or 3 multiple choice questions in math, but now we're looking at how are we breaking down that math problem that students have no idea what type of formula they should be using to be able to answer the question. And now it's blank because it's a short answer question. And that's the problem that we're seeing. So that's where we are with our MCAS plan.
This is just, I was going to make it available just to the committee, but I felt it was important to make it public as well. Here are the 8th grade science MCAS scores. So as you can see, this is a comparison because we did stay MCAS with science from 2013 to 2016. Baby steps in terms of we're trending in the right way. We've made some small strides in the right direction, but it's nothing to make a banner about. And you know how I like making banners. So there's still work that needs to be done.
So I'd like to move up to the school improvement plan. Is that-
Yes.
Is it gonna be a video with an escalator?
What's that? No, the escalator video will come out next year, so.
Cycles every,
Cycles, it has to. So.
has to be a new committee, Phil.
When we're looking at our school improvement plan, again, we wanted to tie it in to what we're doing, and we spend a lot of time on our core values. So when we're looking at respect, personal responsibility, communication, and collaboration, those are the 4 core values of the high school, so we wanted to be able to tie in our goals to the core values. This improvement plan came from our school council from last year. You will see that it's a 2-year plan, because a lot of things in here, the timeline is 1 year. I think we are, it could take us 2 years, but you'll see that some of these are 1-year plans, and some of these are also 2-year plans. So looking at our first goal, which does tie into culture, respect, and personal responsibility, we're looking at creating an environment of respect and positive rapport, and then looking at implementing research-based systems of intervention. So when we're looking at PBIS, some of us will call it restorative discipline or restorative justice, which is something that we're looking at more now. So when students get disciplined for something, it's not just a negative, but how are we building that relationship back with students? And that really comes from the teacher. Teachers and students need to have conversations if it's something that happened in that classroom. So looking at how do we increase connection, so our advisory period, which is limited, we have 15 minutes a day for 15 minutes every Wednesday to work on advisory, but we've identified students that in their eyes, they do not have an adult or someone in the building that they feel comfortable with, so we need to go and figure out how do we build those connections. And then for us, growth mindset, you're gonna see that and hear about that everywhere. I'm sure you're all doing it in your districts. But for us, it's not about I can't, but I will, or I will be able to when I. So looking at how do we motivate students? When you're looking at the deficits of motivation, students aren't motivated to learn because of, there's 4 or 5 different deficits, and for us, we're looking at how do we build the confidence with students so that they can say, I can if I put in a little more work, rather than saying, I won't, or I can't, or I don't know how to. And then finally, looking at formal transition programs, having students from the 8th grade to the 9th grade, or students that are coming out of district or that are coming school choice to us, how do we transition them a little better and communicating with all parties, whether it's guidance counselors, school chairs, with administrators, about what type of student we're getting and how do we support them to the best of our abilities on day 1. So that's goal 1. Looking at goal 2, is all about academic excellence. So we're looking to increase student achievement, provide meaningful and authentic learning opportunities. This is where our one-to-one technology or one-to-one learning program is coming into, and then looking at data-driven practices to inform instructional practices. So, the first goal when we're looking at that, UBD curriculum, we are, I think, advancing like the middle school, and we're ready to go into stage 2 of UBD. But the next piece is to be able to identify best practices. So I'd like to be able to do learning walks with my department heads. I'd like to be able to identify power standards, and that's a goal that the administrators in the district have, that we're going to be identifying power standards that we want to see in each classroom. And that will hopefully provide a framework at some point. We're going to, again, start small, but we want to have a framework in mind so that we're seeing best practices in every teacher's, in every classroom, K through 12. So that, to me, is academic excellence. Just as an example, I think PD opportunities and being able to visit various places, but this was a PD opportunity that we had. It was a collaborative out at Uxbridge, and this was in a classroom, which I think is a nice sort of framework in terms of an instructional practice or things that this teacher sees and values. So it's about framing learning, presenting information, engaging students, check understanding, and anchor learning. So this, I don't don't know if you could all see this, but this is what's posted in their classroom and on their board. And this, to me, is a great way. So when I look at framing learning, this is, are we posting learning objectives and essential questions on the board in front of students so that students know what they're doing and why they're doing it? That, to me, is an instructional framework that we all need to be at. So this is something, again, I think is a whole body piece that I just found as a nice, simple template for us to look at. Again, I think the one-to-one is going to be a big project. It's something that we spent a lot of time on. We are rolling that out, so I do appreciate getting that policy and procedures out, because without that, I wouldn't be able to go and send out the email, put it on the website, and reference that on Monday to my students, and then also reference that to our parents on Wednesday night. So having that in place definitely helps me to get those Chromebooks in front of our kids the first week of January. So that is something that we're still going to be working on. Again, the end goal is to look at that Chromebook as an instructional tool, not only for our students, but also for the teachers. So how is that going to look like? We are implementing STARS. And that's something that we're doing on the math. So we're doing that with our freshman math classes right now. We're in that first rollout of getting the tests out. We haven't used the data at all to support that, but that's something that we're looking to implement, and we'd like to see, again, what the middle school's doing to be able to use data to really drive what we're doing from an instructional standpoint and really support those kids that really need the help. Finally, I'm looking at authentic learning experiences or opportunities. So we've built our internship program. We're continuing to build that. We're looking at varied electives, but now we're also looking at career paths. So again, not every student in our building is going to college or university. So we're looking at how to identify certain classes for students to say, okay, when I graduate at 18, I can go and have a certificate in publisher or whatever that looks like, so that they're ready and prepared for the career, So that's something that we're looking at. And then finally, goal 3 ties into communication. Again, communication, I think, is really important. So for us, how do I utilize communication tools to really talk about what's happening at the high school, not only from the social events, but also from a curriculum standpoint, from the different initiatives and programs, because I think the more that we could put out there to the community, the more the community will believe in the schools that we have in our districts and know that we're doing a great job. So that's something that I'm really personally taking that on myself to get out there. And then finally, building partnerships, outside partnerships. And that is with anything, whether that's an internship program, an opportunity, or looking at social services, health and wellness. That's a really big piece. So we are happy to have Family Continuity on board. They're out in Whitensville, and they're really helping us with social and emotional issues and concerns that we have in our building, and that's also tied down to the middle school. So we have 2 people, a male and a female counselor that comes in 1 day a week. One's here on a Tuesday, the other one's here on a Thursday. So building partnerships is really important. We also need to go and look at our NEASC accommodations and recommendations. I believe I have a report that's due in March, so I will need your assistance to help me put a lovely progress report together as to where we are and where we're going. I will say that we've moved in a positive directions with a lot of different things, including have a library media communication specialist, which has been a big red flag, and I will tell you that Ursula Hunt is doing a fabulous job. It was a great hire, and I'm glad that we had that support. And then finally, looking at learning expectations. So we have built-in learning expectations that we will report out on our 2nd and 4th quarter report cards. Now we need to go use that data to go and support what we're going to do further. So that is, that's a school improvement plan. Sorry, I'm all over the place.
Any questions for Mr. Dudek?
Mr. Cameron had about 8 questions, so I want 1.
I don't think he had.
Careful what you ask
I have another question for Mr. Cameron.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question, Mark.
Well, you brought up the banners. You want to tell us about the bus? I'll ask the question about
About the what?
the bus.
Oh, the bus.
Your new banner.
Yes.
Could you just verify for me that it was not out there at 4:30?
I
The
don't think
banner.
it was.
Not the bus, the banner.
The banner and bus, I don't, why, the bus might have.
The
been.
bus was.
Yeah. But I don't
That's
know
all
if
I'll
the
say.
banner was. I think the custodians put the banner on.
The banner looks great.
You just didn't know why the bus was there earlier?
We'll talk about it later.
Did I answer your question?
Did you want to share with us the bus, why the bus is here?
Sure. So district-wide, we're doing a toy drive, and we did this as a middle school about 4 or 5 years ago, where we just try to generate more excitement around the toy drive, and we make it into a competition here at the middle school. So the competition this year is to stuff the bus full of toys, and that bus is going to visit each school, pick up the toys from each school, and make the donation.
Awesome. It's awesome. It's
A lot
a
of
great
toys.
visual.
We paid for that bus. It's donated.
It's a
That's
donated
very
bus
great.
by Telstone.
It's a great visual.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
It is definitely a good visual.
Thank you. I like the spotlight too.
Oh, thank you.
That's great.
A solar power
Bill, did you really have a question or you were joking?
I can throw one out. So, during parent-teacher conferences at the high school, one of the things I liked a lot is one of the teachers had her Google Classroom up. And my wife and I didn't sign up yet, and she signed us up right there and then, give me your email right now, and then went through, so my point is, I'm glad to see people using Google Classroom there, and that will continue to enhance with the Chromebook, because what she went through was exactly what my son sees at home on his computer when he logs in terms of flashcards that they create or other things. So your goal that you had on there is going to fit nicely in there with the Google Classroom. So it's not a question, it's a comment. So
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions?
My wife texted me. Apparently, I was too serious, according to my oldest daughter.
She's
So,
watching.
She was watching.
Might
So
wanna-
this is me being
Joke.
serious. Alice, it's way past your bedtime. Go to bed. Hopefully, they're not still watching. But I guess it was too serious. I'll smile more.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
much. Good job. Drive safely.
Have a good
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
We don't have any building improvement in our school plan.
Oh, geez.
Thank you very much,
Should
Mr.
it be
Cameron and
obvious?
Mr. Dudek. We refer to ourselves, the administrators, as a leadership team, and I think both of those words are reflected in what we have heard tonight. So thank you. One last point for my report is in your packet. You have the FY18 budget timeline, which is Mrs. Cobb helped me to create. And as you can see here, it is moved up a little bit from years past, and we will expect to review the draft budget with the committee the day after the governor's budget comes out. Part of my practice goal is to have 2 Saturday meetings open to everybody who would like to attend, and we'll get a complimentary brochure of our budget on February 4th and February 11th at the high school. We'll be serving breakfast, and we will then continue to take that conversation to libraries and senior centers so that we have a better understanding of the needs and where we have been and where we need to go. The school committee public hearing is on February 16th. We continue with the public forums. The school committee adoption is March 9th, and then March into April are the finance committee meetings, and then May are our town meetings, with the goal to have an approved budget for that last town meeting.
are the SAD Day roundtables, are those meetings, those open meetings?
Those are open. Sure, that's.
But are they meetings under the meeting
If we're
process?
there.
Only if the committee wants to make it. It's really going to be informational in a forum that Wen and I and Dave will lead.
Are they presenting to us or are they?
No, this is going to be around
That's for
the
them.
discussion over breakfast about the budget and the components in the brochure that we are compiling.
But we're gonna see that at other meetings, or is that gonna be the meeting that you share out? I think that's what.
Yeah.
The meeting that will actually share it would be on the 26th.
26th, Yeah. okay.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if there was, if there was
Yeah, the
something
next 2
different.
months would certainly be opportunities to get the information in the hands of all stakeholders and to have deep conversation around that.
But I think it was our intent or our hopefulness that town board members would attend those breakfast
Open to
meetings.
everybody, parents, students, faculty and staff, town boards, everybody.
Yeah.
So we look forward to that. And that ends the report.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Is there a spot to post this? Because we're getting it
It's
so
going
early
to-
that we wanna
it's
make sure
going
it's.
to be posted.
Perfect.
Yes.
I'm gonna give him this. Okay, moving on to the report of the Assistant Superintendent.
Yeah, just a couple quick things, just to follow up on the one-to-one rollout. That is a multi-year project. You remember, we started by identifying the infrastructure and the schools need to be updated, finished that, and now we're finally getting the tools into students' hands. And although we would love to be able to put a tool in every student's hand, we do have to start kind of small and phase it in. I will point out to the public that, learning management systems, AKA Blackboard, Google Classroom, those are the waves of education future. We are going to see computer-based testing being used throughout the Commonwealth. I think 2019 is when the commissioner wants to see all of our state testing done on the computer. And if we expect our children to do well on those assessments, especially where they're going to be a competency-based assessment, we need to have them used to using those tools in order to do well. Furthermore, these tools are innovations. They foster creativity and innovation, foster communication, collaboration, and using technology to increase the use of problem-based learning, which is essential because that's what people are really paid to do in the real world. And it opens up the world of learning. These are not toys, these are tools, and any high-paying job involves the use of technology. And in fact, even, some lower-paying jobs are going to be using technology. More jobs were lost in this country due to innovation than jobs being moved overseas or to Mexico or lost to immigrants. And I know that facts aren't always the case, but robots are taking over our manufacturing, and we need to have students who are able to do coding and able to do robotics. And this is just one step along the way. With that, I want to reiterate that Monday, the students will have assemblies about the sophomores and freshmen, about the Chromebooks. Juniors and seniors will have assemblies about bring your own device. Parents, Wednesday evening at the high school in the auditorium, we'll have a meeting for them, and distribution will be after, kind of a late holiday gift, if you will, the 3rd and 4th of January. The last bit of exciting news I want to share is that, we are implementing STARS. That is a process. And again, the difference between, MCAS park results, whatever we want, MCAS 2.0 as they'll be called this spring, those are one picture at the end of the year. A lot of testing at once. And that's last year's news. So we're looking at results from what kids did last May. Okay? STARS gives us on-the-ground, ongoing evaluation and intervention, and real good, is a good tie-in between those assessments and how our kids are doing, reaching the standards, not just the test, reaching the standards and teaching them to make sure we see them making continued growth. And that first slide we saw with the middle school, high school, where the middle school piloted STARS last year and started off, and it was hard to see on the screen, but the amount of growth and closing of that gap right there in 1 year of using that and the work here at the middle school is astounding and something we should all be very proud of. So with that, I will close out.
Question, Chromebooks, can you just confirm the fee? They're being given to the students, correct?
They are being given to the students. We are strongly encouraging parents to insure them, which I believe is about $20 for the year, where you can do a multi-year plan. They are school property, so if they leave, they would return them. But much like you would hand a book out or something along that line. And then we are strongly suggesting that they buy a cover, and we've got a certain set of covers and orders that they can do for that, a case to put them in to protect them. The ones we got are pretty hardy, but people are not paying a fee for the Chromebook. They're either buying insurance or they're committing to replacing them, which is about $200. So people have a choice with that. And, you know, you don't have to take a Chromebook. If a child has a laptop at home that they would rather use, that's fine. We would prefer that they have keyboards, but it needs to be a tablet or a laptop, something along that line. You know, so if you have a kid that has a MacBook Air and they want to use that, that's fine. We will explain to parents the difference is, which if they already have that at home, that's fine. But at home, they don't have filters. So hopefully parents are keeping an eye on where the kids are going. These computers, when they go home, still go through our filters. So that's the difference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And any other questions for Dr.
What do we do with the families that don't have internet access at home?
You can actually use the Chromebooks online. You just have to set up, you just have to download what you're going to use.
Offline, you mean.
Right, offline, sorry. And, you know, what we will do is what we have been doing. There are discounted rates for people who do not have, you know, regular cable in their home. So that's, you know, the other thing is that, you know, they stay after for half an hour, and not every single thing needs to be done online. The reality is that we're already using the Google Apps. I mean, the only difference between what we're doing then and now is now they have a tool where they can access, we're giving them the tool to access it. So students have gone to libraries, used the home computer, you know, those are still options.
McDonald's have free Wi-Fi.
Right, go to McDonald's, you know, but the library.
Sit in your neighbor's
is an
porch
option
and
as
steal
well.
theirs.
Go to sleep, yeah.
But, you know, I mean, there's multiple different options. You know, not that I'm suggesting this, but depending on your data plan, you can plug your phone in, and use that as a hotspot when you need it. Go to a friend's house, go to grandma's house. Those are,
Tax Wi-Fi to the bus and
right,
picking up toys.
those numbers are few and far between, and this administration has been very, and I'm talking about Mike and Justin, have been very proactive in getting those families access to that. Good question.
Thank you. All right, and our last public forum, please come to the table. You could just give us your name and your town.
Les Davis, Town of Millville. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to request a copy of what was presented tonight by the principals, their improvement plans, and also copies of the slides that were presented, so that we can look at them and kind of devour them also a little bit, okay? So
Like paper
how can I
copies?
go about getting copies of that?
You'd like paper copies?
Pardon me?
Most of this
Can
posted on-
can I just
Paper
hand
copies?
on Joanne's?
Yeah, I would like to have a paper copy.
These you can always find too, and anything that's in our folder is always public access, so, I mean, you can have the copy, that's fine, but just know that they're always available.
I'm kind of saddened by that answer, and I'll tell you why. You just told my, Mrs. Davis to
Yeah, but we
present
have
you.
them, we do have
Excuse
them
me.
available
As
before
she-
our
as
meeting,
she said,
Mr.
I'm not through
Davis.
talking
They
yet.
were ready before our meeting.
But our documents, our agenda, and everything attached to our packet is available online the day before our meeting. So you would have time to review it before you came in here.
I do
There is a
believe I
huge
have the floor.
difference. No, I'm answering your question.
No, well, I haven't finished.
I answered your question.
No, ma'am, you didn't. I said, as you presented to Mrs. Davis, you would like to have copies of what she presented to you.
Absolutely, yep.
And you indicated that you didn't want to go online to look it up because she told you it was online. It was from the
No,
Massachusetts
I-
Department
what-
of
Go ahead,
Elementary
finish.
and Secondary Education. It was online. You indicated that you can spend a lot of time on there looking for things. I understand your request, and we will honor it. When we come up, we'll present something before we bring it. I like to have the same courtesy. If you can present me a paper copy, I would appreciate it. Now that I know this online and posting, from now on, I'll go up and look for it, okay?
Sure.
So I would like to have a paper
Been that
copy
way
of
for
what
about
was
5
presented
years.
tonight.
But just to clarify the difference is this is in a tab, okay? and what your wife was presenting, you fish through the DESE website. So as a teacher for 17 years and going through the DESE website for 2 different districts, I can tell you that you could spend hours on there. With our website, you go to the meeting posting and you get the folder. That's the difference. That's the clarification.
I do a tremendous amount of research on the internet, okay, and through the website. So I understand. I'm real familiar with it. Thank you.
No problem.
The second thing I'd like to ask is that in the very near future, your budget process is going to start very quickly, if not already. And that this coming May, you're going to be coming for the towns and presenting your budget. I would highly recommend that if you could take and put together some type of a summary that shows what you're going to do as a regional school system, district, of improving the standards of the academic standards here. And the school improvement plans that were presented by the principals are great. If you can summarize those and put them in a handout, and also maybe summarize how you're going to make yourself more attractable to students. Also maybe how you're going to work to try to eliminate outgoing students through school choice. Make yourself more desirable to that. If you could put some type of a summary together that we can hand out to the communities, I think it would be a great asset to you. I know as the town moderator, when my board say, we're gonna go buy a new truck, we want to purchase some land, we want to do this, as most of you recognize, we're moving into a temporary town hall now because ours has been slowed down. I had the committees put together a PowerPoint presentation, so it answered those questions that the people there voting on that particular article knew. I think that Steve, you and the other members of the Millville contingent here, when we was going to hire the town administrator, they gave a wonderful presentation of why Millville should move in that direction. And when it came up for a vote, there wasn't one objection to it. The people really liked it, and there was a lot of people that came there that had a different opinion than that when they got there. But once they got there and got the presentation, they jumped right on board. So I just think that something, if you can give the residents of Millville and Blackstone a summary of how you're moving forward within the next 5 years, it would be great. And I think it would answer a lot of questions and put a lot of concerns to rest.
So do you think that should be maybe in the form of like a PowerPoint?
It could be a
On the day
PowerPoint,
of,
it could be a handout.
Okay.
You could give it a month before town meeting. You could hand it out in handout form. You could post it on your website if you want to, whatever. Just so that a person can look at it and say, oh, this is what they're going to do. Because what I heard here tonight impressed me with its principles.
And your suggestion is exactly what we are preparing to have ready for those February 4th and February 11th meetings. So everybody will be able to have documentation that is with lots of pertinent information, not just numbers,
Yep.
but also bullets around where we've been, where we need to go, what we are doing, different initiatives, curriculum, technology, facilities. We will have all of that in one packet. And
That'd be wonderful.
that's something that we have already in the works for
And
that.
that's for February,
Yes,
not for the
February
town
4th.
meeting.
And with all due respect to everybody here, I'm not sure where people have been, but we've done that every single year. We binded something one year.
Brochure
We had
one
people
year.
at each place handing out stuff, running out of stuff. So when you come here and say that, it's disheartening to me because I'm not sure where you've been. And I hear the same thing over and over again. We need a plan. When you can do a PowerPoint, we do it every single year. And I'm not looking for a response, okay? I'm just saying, we do it every single year.
And I would like to add to that our administrators are here all the time presenting the amazing things that are happening in our schools, just as they did tonight.
Yep.
All the time.
Yep.
So, and we're on Millville Cable, so I'm sure you've seen our meetings
And our
without being
packets have
here.
been online for about 4 years.
But the goal will definitely be for us to be able to deliver in one document all the different layers of information that are important for everybody, so that they have them. And that will, I think, start a good conversation, well-textured, early in the cycle. So that's what the goal will
Do
be.
you plan to present a PowerPoint presentation at the town meeting?
So I did last year, I can do it again. We'll have that along with the brochures, the documentation.
Yep, and I need to see your presentation prior to the meeting, so at least a week ahead of time.
I submitted his to you last year.
Yes, you did.
Through-
So-
Via email.
Yep.
We do the same thing
That's
again.
exactly what we're looking to build upon. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Yes.
And just to answer, I mean, obviously, we want to put that in the report, but just to answer one of your questions about what are we doing to make ourselves different?
Yeah.
Last year and this year, we're increasing our advanced placement offerings.
Yeah.
More so than the other schools in the district, and this one-to-one initiative is part of that as well, turning us into a 21st century learning community.
Yeah.
So we need support from the towns in order to do that, because we're only doing 2 grades instead of 3 grades. So that's going to be a concerted effort going forward. But those are some of the things, because that's been on our radar since we came on here 3 years ago. But, you know, we do 2.5, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. It's late. But
like
that,
25.
that, there is a purpose to all of that, but it's, in order to do some of that heavy lifting, we need some support.
You know, and I understand that we say that this is on our website, and this, we've done it here, and we've done it there, and we posted it here. Folks, I had people coming up to me a day before election saying, where are we voting this year?
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's
But you
posted
could have it
everywhere.
everywhere too, and you're still gonna get that same question.
Exactly, exactly. So, I mean, it's a battle every day to get the information out there. And it's a battle every day to try to get people to look for it, you know. So, but thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Davis. All right, moving on to school committee forum. Steve?
Nothing new.
Tara?
Just want to remind people that next Thursday is the regional agreement workshop here at the middle school. And just a extra clarification is, I know in the write-up, I don't have it in front of me, it said how Blackstone voted yes, Millville voted no. Just a reminder that Millville only passed it 82 no votes to 60 yes votes. So there is interest from Millville residents as well in considering a change.
But it's not to consider the old there's no motion on the floor.
Exactly.
It's
What's the
not to
purpose for the
consider a
meeting?
motion, it's to look at the concept again, from the scratch.
Correct, correct. Yes, we're not taking last year's motion, we're not taking the one from 2 or 3 years before that. It'll be a whole new committee to look at new ideas. And that's pretty much the meeting, is just kind of a workshop brainstorm for the first meeting and see where we go from there. If it's worth continuing, who wants to be on the committee, whatever, so everyone's welcome.
Thank you, Tara. Wendy? Georgette?
Just want to congratulate the band members again for coming here tonight, and that they did a great job. And thank Gwen for all her hard work, helping us out. Thank you.
Jean?
I just want to let committee members know that on December 12th, I will be meeting to start reviewing our policies, 2 o'clock in the district office. So if anybody wants to join us, we'll be starting that process. It will be a lengthy process.
Do you have an idea on a timeline, or you just?
We are doing Section A and Section B in our first meeting, and we have, we go into double letter, so.
Okay. Anything else, Jane? Thank you. Bill? Good. And I am good too. So going forward, we have our, the regional agreement workshop, December 8th, that is here. And December 15th is our next public meeting. We do already have a lengthy agenda, but of course, if something else comes up, please send it our way. And I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Wendy and second by Jane. All those in favor?
Did
Any
everybody
opposed?
sign?